Chapter 14:19. My primordial spirit Dharma idol is actually so amazing? Seeing the primordial spirit in his mind constantly changing, Ji Tianqing was instantly shocked. He only felt that it was unbelievable. When he cultivated the true self Dharma idol, he only formed the Dharma idol naturally according to his heart, talent, and the characteristics of his cultivation technique. Before the primordial spirit Dharma idol was successfully formed, he did not know what kind of Dharma idol he would form. Now that the Dharma idol was successfully formed, he realized that his primordial spirit Dharma idol was completely different from others. The true self Dharma idol that the Mansion Master taught me is really a marvelous cultivation technique. It actually allowed me to form such a strange Dharma idol. With a thought, I can make it change at will. It can become a small golden person or a golden divine sword. It can even split into 81 divine swords. In that case, when I use the divine lightning sword domain in the future, won't I be able to use the 81 golden swords as the foundation to increase the power of the domain? Thinking of this, he carefully examined the 81 golden swords. Indeed, he found that the golden swords contained the purple light of divine lightning. Moreover, the power of the heaven-mending pearl also filled the golden swords with mysterious and unpredictable power. This discovery made Ji Tianqing excited and full of anticipation. Great! The ninth heaven's divine lightning and the heaven-mending pearl are both powers that can restrain demon experts. Now that these two powers have merged into my primordial spirit golden swords, it will be much easier for me to deal with demon experts in the future. After breaking through to the primordial spirit realm, his strength had increased by several times. His dermic powers had also undergone a qualitative leap. The ninth heaven's divine lightning and the heaven-mending pearl had caused his primordial spirit to undergo miraculous changes, increasing his combat strength. If he encountered Devil Blood and Venerable Blood Killer again, he was 100% confident that he could kill them. After a long time, the heaven and earth phenomenon that illuminated the entire Emperor Manor dissipated. Ji Tianqing collected his thoughts and continued to receive the Mansion Master and the other three's imparting. Breaking through to the primordial spirit realm was far from enough. It was still not enough to fight against the Demon Emperor. The Mansion Master and the other three had only imparted about 30% of their powers to him. Of course, they had to continue imparting. Their goal was to impart their lifetime's powers to Ji Tianqing so that he could reach the level where he could kill the Demon Emperor. Ji Tianqing continued to cultivate, quickly refining the Manor Head and the other three Manor Heads' powers. Previously, he was only in the soul refinement realm, so the speed at which he received the energy imparting was very slow. It would take a very long time for him to refine it. However, things were different now. After he reached the primordial soul realm, he was like an abyss vortex, constantly devouring the Four's powers and rapidly refining them. With the passage of time, his martial Dao foundation stabilized. His strength began to increase rapidly as he headed towards the second firmament essence soul realm. A month had passed in the Arch Palace's secret chamber, but only 3 days had passed in the outside world. That evening, the setting sun was like blood. The dark red afterglow sprinkled over the Tian Long mountain pass, illuminating the battlefield within a radius of several hundred miles. The battle lasted for 3 whole days. Finally, it was coming to an end. Blood clouds filled the sky, and no matter how strong the northern wind was, they would not disperse. That towering blood-red pillar of light and the gigantic demon god's shadow were still standing tall in the sky. On the battlefield below, it was an extremely tragic scene. The huge Tian Long mountain pass had long been destroyed in the war and turned into a huge crater. The mountain range within a radius of a few hundred miles had been reduced to piles of dirt and ruins. Dense cracks appeared on the ground, and many deep pits were scattered all over the ground. Countless human and demon corpses were piled up on the ground, buried in the deep craters or ruins. Most of the corpses were incomplete, and their flesh had rotted away, leaving behind only skeletons. The blood, qi, and essence of more than 5 million corpses had turned into blood clouds and blood mist that converged towards the demon god's shadow like a tide. The ancestor demon god needed to reach the heavens for 3 days and condense an avatar with countless blood, qi, and essence. Be it the blood of the human soldiers or the souls of the demon soldiers, they were all raw materials to condense an avatar. There was not much of a difference. This was the demon emperor's plan and conspiracy. In order to allow the ancestor demon god to be reborn, he would not hesitate to sacrifice millions of demon soldiers. The most terrifying thing about the demons was that they were not only ruthless to outsiders, but also to their own people. The battle was finally over. The Tianlong mountain pass was completely destroyed. The battle between the Empyrean Emperor and the Demon Emperor had long ended. The battle cries that resounded through the sky lasted for 3 days and 3 nights before finally dissipating. More than 2 million soldiers of the human clan were almost completely annihilated. Only 6 commanders, tens of imperial guards, over 200 human commanders and over 1,000 powerful human warriors were left alive, and they could still leave the Heaven Dragon Pass alive. But all of them were seriously injured and bathed in blood. Their injuries were very miserable. They had no time to treat their injuries. After retreating according to the order, they quickly gathered under the oath-taking platform in the middle of the camp. On the spacious and sacred oath-taking platform stood the Empyrean Emperor and the Imperial Tutor. Both of them were covered in blood. Their robes were torn and tattered, and their hair was disheveled. They looked very miserable. The atmosphere was very heavy and oppressive. The 1,000 or so people who were lucky enough to survive were also very despaired. Everyone was dejected, and their eyes were dim. The Empyrean Emperor's sword in his left hand and raised his right hand to wipe off the blood flowing from the corner of his mouth. He ordered with a hoarse voice, "Soldiers, the battle is over. The Tianlong mountain pass has fallen. This was the result that was predestined. Everyone's mission has been completed. We have stopped the devil army for 3 days. From now on, everyone must hurry back to the central state city. I have already made preparations and arrangements. Our human soldiers will gather there and start the final battle with the devil army." The deep and majestic voice spread around the oath-taking platform. More than 1,000 human soldiers slowly raised their heads to look at the Empyrean Emperor. The fire of hope was reignited in their eyes. Then, the Empyrean Emperor took the Imperial Tutor and the others and left the oath-taking platform. They rushed back to the central state city in the south. The 6 commanders also took more than 1,000 survivors and followed them back to the central state city. At the same time, in the devil camp outside the Tianlong mountain pass, the 18 million demon soldiers were divided into 20 armies and lined up near the various mountain peaks. Everyone's blood was boiling. Full of excitement, they let out earth-shaking cheers and shouts to celebrate the victory of the war. "Our race will win. Kill all the humans. The Tianlong mountain pass has been destroyed. Soon, we will step into the central state and rule the entire Tianxian land. Your Majesty the Devil Emperor is wise and mighty." Waves of cheers rose and fell one after another. They converged into a sound wave torrent that reverberated above the devil camp. The Devil Emperor stood proudly high in the sky. Looking down at the devil army that was cheering excitedly, a playful smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. After a long while, he withdrew his gaze and turned to look at the demonic god's shadow high in the sky. That demonic god's shadow had been in the sky for 3 days. It had absorbed the blood, chi, and soul of millions of soldiers. Chapter 14:20. About an hour later, the ancestral fiend god's blood demon avatar was finally condensed. Roar! The fiend god avatar, which had not moved for 3 days, was finally able to move on its own. It twisted its body a few times, stretched its arms and head, and let out an earth-shaking roar. The deafening sound spread over a radius of 10,000 miles. Then, the fiend god avatar opened its arms, as if it was embracing the sky, and laughed wildly. Ha 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 ha. 30,000 years. After 30,000 years, this god has returned. The death god has returned to the human world, and darkness will once again envelop the world. Gods, do you see this? Only this god is eternal and immortal, undying and indestructible. The fiend god's wild laughter was filled with hatred and killing intent, as well as incomparable excitement and ecstasy. His thunderous voice reverberated fiercely in the sky, shaking the heavens and the earth for thousands of miles around. In the demon race's camp, more than 10 million demon soldiers raised their heads to look at the sky, looking at the ancestral fiend god with worship and reverence. The demon emperor in the sky was the first to bow, respectfully saluting the fiend god avatar. "Welcome back to the human world, ancestral fiend god, and revitalize our race." As the demon emperor's shout resounded through the sky, more than 10 million demon soldiers also knelt on the ground, saluting with great reverence. "Welcome back to the human world, ancestral fiend god, and revitalize our race. Heaven bless our race, and our race will sweep across the world and unify the world." The shouts of more than 10 million people converged into a terrifying sound wave, spreading in all directions. The earth within 10,000 miles shook as if an earthquake had occurred. After a long time, the fiend god avatar gradually shrank into a bloody light, retreating into the depths of the demon race's camp. After the bloody light entered the primogenitor altar, it immediately disappeared. Then, a tall figure in a black robe walked out of the primogenitor altar. This was the ancestral fiend god's true body, a body condensed from 4 divine items. In the sky above the surface, the demon emperor looked toward the south, and ordered with a booming voice, "All soldiers, listen to my order. After resting for half a day, we will march into the central province." Along the way, no matter if it was a village or a city, no one was left alive. Within 2 months, this emperor's army will descend upon Central Continent City. The army of over 10 million demons excitedly waved their weapons and shouted, "Yes, sir." Unknowingly, 5 days had passed. The emperor, the imperial tutor, and more than 1,000 survivors had all returned to the Central Plains. At the same time, the news that heaven long past had fallen and millions of human soldiers had been annihilated spread across the Central Plains. As early as 2 months ago, the hundreds of cities in the Central Plains were already in a state of panic. Most of the martial artists and commoners had already left the city in advance and fled to the south. Less than 10% of the warriors and commoners were left behind in the cities. Most of them were the defenders. Now that the news of Tian Long Mountain Pass's fall had spread, less than 10% of the cultivators and common people had given up their last glimmer of hope and fled to the south. The imperial emperor didn't return to the imperial court. Instead, he stayed in Central State City and used the city lord's mansion as a temporary commander's palace. This Central State City, which had been passed down through the ages, would be the site of the decisive battle between the human race and the demon race. After returning to Central State City, the imperial emperor first issued a series of orders. He first gave the order for the Central Continent 100 cities to abandon the various cities and gather in Central Continent City. In addition, the defenders of the 9 regions of the south and the recruited warriors also received his orders and rushed to Central State City. In addition to these orders, the imperial emperor also summoned the skilled craftsmen and array masters of the human race to strengthen the defenses of Central State City and construct a powerful defensive array. In just a few days, hundreds of thousands of warriors and craftsmen rushed to the deserted Central State City. Everyone was full of enthusiasm, wholeheartedly throwing themselves into the construction of the city's defenses. They were doing their best to resist the demon race and protect the territory of the human race. Every day, large amounts of martial artists and human soldiers would rush to Central Continent City from all directions. 10 days later, more than 5 million warriors and soldiers had gathered in Central State City. The empty houses and buildings were now occupied by many soldiers and martial artists. Thus, the imperial tutor and several commanders worked together to use a secret technique. Under Central State City, they constructed an underground city of the same scale. This underground city was extremely large, but the construction was extremely simple. It was built like a military camp, specifically used to house the great army of the human race. Several days later, the construction of the underground city was completed. The human race soldiers that arrived in Central State City were arranged to stay in the underground city. Apart from these important matters, the imperial emperor, the imperial tutor, and the commanders also had to worry about all kinds of trivial matters. For example, the warriors and soldiers that came from all over the world, How should they be arranged and who would lead them? Tens of millions of warriors and soldiers were stationed in Central State City. How should they deal with the supply of provisions and cultivation resources? In short, Central State City quickly recovered its bustling scene. The voices of people were loud and bustling. However, the warriors and soldiers were not undisciplined. Everyone's morale was high, their nerves stretched taut. They maintained vigilance, ready to fight at any time. The imperial tutor and the commanders would also frequently mobilize the soldiers, having everyone mentally prepare themselves, vowing to live and die with Central State City. A month quickly passed. Tens of millions of warriors gathered in Central State City, as well as hundreds of thousands of martial experts and talented individuals. The city wall's defenses were doubled and several primordial spirit-level defensive formations were also completed, operating normally. The imperial emperor and the commanders, after exhausting themselves for so long, could finally properly rest and adjust their breathing. At the same time, the scouts on the front lines continuously sent news back to the city, reporting the latest movements of the demon race army. Heaven Dragon Pass was 1,000,000 li away from Central State City. The demon race army was 18 million strong. Even if they traveled at full speed, it would still take them more than a month. Moreover, as the demon race army marched south, they plundered countless villages and cities, exterminating all life forms. According to the news from the scouts, the demon race army would need at least 20 days to reach Central State City. In other words, there was less than a month until the final battle. The situation in Central State City became more and more tense, the atmosphere becoming more and more oppressive. However, all of the human race soldiers believed that even the Imperial Emperor, the Imperial Tutor, the Son of Heaven, and the other leaders of the human race would defend Central State City to the death, fighting side by side with them. Even if they died in battle, they would have no regrets. A few days later, the Monster Emperor and Golden Dragon Emperor's secret messages also flew into Central State City, reaching the Imperial Emperor's hands. Chapter 1421. The atmosphere in Zhongzhou City was heavy and solemn. The divine masters and princes in the imperial residence were not idle either. After they had recovered from their injuries, they worked together to cast spells to strengthen the defense of the imperial residence. Zhongzhou City was the location of the final battle, and the imperial residence was the final fortress. Everyone was so busy that they almost forgot about the imperial palace in the depths of the imperial residence. It was not until noon that the imperial palace lit up with golden light that the divine masters and princes were awakened. Divine Master He Yu was meditating in the spacious hall. He suddenly sensed the change in the weather and immediately opened his eyes. Swoosh! His figure flashed and teleported out. He stood under the eaves of the hall's entrance and looked up at the sky. At the same time, a few divine masters and more than 30 princes flew into the sky and looked up at the sky. They saw a golden pillar of light that was tens of thousands of feet tall shoot up into the sky and spread out in the sky. The dazzling golden light illuminated the heavens and the earth for thousands of miles. It almost lit up the entire imperial residence. The golden light emitted a powerful and sacred aura that shrouded the heavens and the earth. Everyone was in awe. Of course, that invisible pressure contained some kind of law. It was a powerful force of heaven and earth. It would not suppress the divine masters and princes, nor would it make them feel uncomfortable. Soon, the golden light in the sky spread out and formed a golden sea of clouds that was thousands of miles wide. Above the sea of clouds, the dark golden light condensed into a huge figure that stood tall. The god masters and princes could clearly see that the 30,000-foot-tall figure was a handsome young man. He stood in the golden sea of clouds, and his tall figure seemed to be connected to the heavens. He formed a seal with both hands and made a mysterious pose. His left hand pointed to the sky and his right hand pointed to the ground. He exuded a godlike aura. The martial emperors and martial monarchs' sons were astounded when they saw the beast's appearance. Many of them even exclaimed, "Oh my God! It's Ji Tianqing. He just broke through to the primordial soul realm a month ago and caused a heaven and earth phenomenon. What kind of divine art did he cultivate now?" The heaven and earth phenomenon this time is even more powerful than when he broke through to the primordial soul realm. He must have cultivated a peerless divine art. Great! Ji Tianqing has broken through to the essence soul realm and even mastered a peerless technique. He'll definitely be able to deal with the ancient fiend emperor. Ji Tianqing, this fellow, is indeed the #1 monster since ancient times. He has only been in the monarch residence for a few years, but he has already become a primordial soul supremacy. Many god-tier masters and crown princes gathered together. They were all shocked and exclaimed as they whispered to each other. However, everyone was excited and proud of Ji Tianqing. Almost no one was jealous of him. After all, he had already become a primordial soul supreme and stood at the pinnacle of the continent. Everyone could only look up to and worship him. They didn't even have the right to be jealous of him. Divine Master Blackfeather stared at the huge figure high in the sky. His single eye shone brightly. His hands and his sleeves were trembling because of excitement. Great! Tianqing had finally condensed his avatar. This fellow just broke through to the essence soul realm not long ago, but he actually condensed his avatar so quickly. There's hope for Middle Continent City. God Teacher He, you knew very well that only those who possessed the Dharma form and Dharma body were the true primordial spirit supremes. Only then would they have the means to wield great power. In the secret chamber deep in the Arch Palace, it was filled with dazzling golden light. Almost nothing could be seen clearly. Ji Tianqing was still sitting on the frost jade bed. All the pores on his body had opened up and released dazzling golden light. He was like a god, sacred and majestic. His aura was so powerful that it could shake the heavens and earth. In fact, after he had condensed his avatar, he could indeed control the heavens and earth. This was because he had cultivated the ultimate skill that the Mansion Master had imparted to him. What he cultivated was the heaven and earth Dharma body. More than a month had passed in the outside world. He had been in seclusion in the secret chamber for 14 months. Ever since he reached the second level of the essence soul realm, he had been cultivating his heaven and earth Dharma body for the past few months. Fortunately, he had cultivated diligently for a few months. With the support of the Mansion Master and the other three, he had successfully cultivated his avatar. Now that he had the Dharma form and heaven and earth Dharma body, he was a true primordial soul supreme. Furthermore, his strength had reached the third level of the essence soul realm. However, this was still not enough. He didn't stop cultivating. He continued to refine the four's cultivation and continued to raise his strength. However, he had been in a state of cultivation all this time and was completely unaware of the changes in the outside world. He didn't notice that the Mansion Master, Emperor Yi, and the other three who had been imparting their cultivation to him had already undergone tremendous changes. 80% of their lifetime's cultivation had been imparted to Ji Tianqing. They had become extremely old and weak. Their hair and beards were as white as snow. Their faces were old, and their skin was shriveled and wrinkled. They didn't look like the top experts of the continent at all. Instead, they looked like the elderly in the mortal world who had one foot in the grave and were about to reach the end of their lives. A month later, Xiao Wentian and Emperor Yi had imparted their lifetime's cultivation to Ji Tianqing. The two of them slowly retracted their hands and sat on the frost jade bed weakly. They looked at each other and forced a smile. Our mission has been completed. Yes, we have no more regrets. Their voices were low and weak. After they finished speaking, they slowly closed their eyes. There was no longer any cultivation in their bodies. They had already become ordinary mortals. Without the support of magic, their bodies that had experienced thousands of years quickly collapsed and dissipated. With a soft rustling sound, their bodies quickly weathered and turned into specks of light that dissipated in the air. Eldest senior brother, little junior sister, we'll take our leave first. When their weak voices sounded, their bodies had completely dissipated and completely disappeared. There was an ancient saying that said, born from heaven and earth, return to heaven and earth. Born as Yang, destroyed as Yin, from beginning to end. After the two of them died, they turned into specks of light and returned to heaven and earth, blending into all things in the world. Perhaps, after a few years, they would reincarnate and be reborn again. But at that time, they would have long forgotten everything about their previous lives. It would be a new beginning. 2 months later, Shui Ruoyu had finished imparting her cultivation. She had turned into a white-haired mortal old woman. Her body had also become illusory and transparent. Like sand, she quickly weathered and turned into specks of light that dissipated. But her expression was very serene. Her eyes were fixed on Ji Tianqing as she murmured in a low voice. A teacher for a day, a teacher for life. If there is a next life, I am willing to serve you by your side. Eldest senior brother, I'll take my leave first. As her weak voice sounded, her body completely dissipated. She had finally returned to heaven and earth. In the secret chamber, only the Manor Lord and Ji Tianqing were left. They were still imparting their cultivation. Ji Tianqing's strength had reached the peak of the 3rd level of the primordial soul realm. He was about to break through to the 4th level. Unknowingly, 3 months had passed. Chapter 14:22. The Manor Lord slowly retracted his palms and ended the spell. The golden light that enveloped him gradually dissipated as well. He sat beside Ji Tianqing with a serene expression, his gaze fixed on Ji Tianqing. At this moment, his hair and beard were white, and his face was old and haggard. He was no different from an ordinary old man. However, his expression was calm and benevolent, and his gaze was filled with relief. He was silent for a long time before his body gradually turned illusory. From the bottom to the top, he began to turn into specks of golden light that dissipated in the air. When his body disappeared, his head and white hair gradually dissipated as well. He sighed with melancholy. It's a pity that I won't be able to drink a mouthful of the vast sea wine that Master brewed personally. No one knew why he had uttered such a sigh before vanishing into thin air. He had lived for 1,000 years, so what had he experienced? From the beginning to the end, he was like a mystery that no one could understand. Shui Ruoyu, Yi Hengchuan, and Xiao Wentian did not understand, and Ji Tianqing was even more so. Regardless, the strongest person in the Tianxian continent, the Manor Lord Gu Daoxian, had dissipated and returned to heaven and earth. The lifetime cultivation of the Manor Lord, Emperor Yi, and the others had been refined by Ji Tianqing. He had successfully reached the 4th tier of the Essence Soul realm, and his combat strength had been greatly enhanced once again. However, he did not end his cultivation and continued to study the Tao of Kenshin. Although the Manor Lord and the other 3 had imparted their lifetime's worth of cultivation and secret techniques to him, they had also mastered the Tao of Kenshin. He had condensed his essence soul, Dharma idol, and Dharma body. However, he had never forgotten that the Tao of Kenshin was the source of his martial arts. In the past, he was only at the spirit tempering realm and cultivated the 1st and 2nd levels of the Tao of Sword Soul. Now that he had reached the Essence Soul realm, it was time to cultivate the 3rd level of the Tao of Sword Soul. Swoosh! His Essence Soul entered the Kenshin tomb and appeared in the cold wilderness, standing near the 18 mysterious tombstones. The 9 tombstones on the left were still empty, but the 9 tombstones on the right had undergone subtle changes. The 2nd tombstone was originally engraved with more than 100 mysterious and ancient characters. That was the 2nd level of the Sword Soul Tao. Now, the seal script on the tombstone had disappeared. A few lines of ancient characters appeared on the 3rd tombstone. Ji Tianqing walked in front of the tombstone and stared at the words on the tombstone at a close distance, carefully studying them. A few hours later, he was able to recognize all the characters and memorize them in his heart. Then, he looked at the 2nd tombstone beside him and had a strange thought. Back then, when I was cultivating the 2nd level of the Sword Soul Tao, I accidentally touched the 1st tombstone and was sucked in by it. I accidentally discovered an alternate dimension with a heavenly tome pavilion inside. Now that I've cultivated to the 3rd level of the Sword Soul Tao, I wonder if the same thing will happen to the 2nd tombstone. Thinking of this, he reached out his hand and touched the 2nd tombstone. When his palm touched the black and cold tombstone, the tombstone lit up with a layer of faint golden light. Shwa! The mysterious golden light immediately enveloped him. He only felt his primordial spirit tremble and was sucked into the tombstone by the golden light. The next moment, his primordial spirit entered the tombstone and came to an alternate dimension. This was a mysterious and vast space. The sky was in all directions and under his feet was a white sea of clouds. In the thick white clouds in front of him, a white jade stone bridge was faintly discernible. The white jade stone bridge was very old and carved with exquisite patterns and patterns. He did not know what they meant. Seeing this scene, Ji Tianqing was shocked and a smile appeared on his face. As expected, this alternate dimension is very similar to the Heavenly Tome Pavilion. I wonder where the stone bridge is connected to. With a heart full of doubts, he stepped across the white jade stone bridge and walked into the depths of the sea of clouds. After a while, he saw the scene in front of him clearly. In the white sea of clouds, there were 99 steps of white jade stone stairs. At the end of the stairs stood a golden pagoda that was 100 meters tall. The pagoda was divided into 3 levels and was octagonal. The eaves that were like crescent moons spread out upward and were paved with glazed golden tiles. It looked very magnificent. The eaves of the octagonal eaves were carved with lifelike dragons and phoenixes that spread their wings and were about to fly. The door of the pagoda that faced the white jade stone bridge was tightly shut. The door that was 100 feet tall was wide and solemn. The black stone door revealed a sense of mystery and heaviness. There was an ancient aura that came from the vicissitudes of life. On both sides of the stone door stood 9 statues. Each statue was an awe-inspiring human guard, wearing silver armor and a golden cape, with a divine weapon hanging on his waist and an ancient halberd in his hand. Although the faces of these statues were covered by armor, they exuded a domineering and majestic aura. This scene was almost the same as the one in the Heavenly Tome Pavilion. Ji Tianqing became more and more expectant. His gaze fell on the lintel of the door. He saw that on the wide black lintel, 3 ancient golden seal characters were engraved. He observed for a moment before he recognized the 3 large characters. Divine Weapon Pavilion. I didn't expect that the second tombstone would hide an ancient divine weapon pavilion. The Heavenly Tome Pavilion collected tens of thousands of books and secret manuals. Could it be that this divine weapon pavilion collected all kinds of divine weapons and magic treasures? Thinking of this, Ji Tianqing's heart was filled with anticipation. His eyes also became bright. He hurriedly crossed the sea of clouds and walked to the door of the divine weapon pavilion. He stretched out his hands and pressed on the heavy stone door. The 2 stone doors were carved with golden dragons and fire phoenixes. They were very lifelike and lifelike. There was neither a door knocker nor a mechanism to open the array on the door. However, Ji Tianqing had the experience of entering the Heavenly Tome Pavilion. He pressed his palms on the golden dragon and fire phoenixes. Suddenly, the 2 stone doors lit up with a dazzling golden light. The golden dragon and fire phoenixes also seemed to come alive. After a glance, they quickly drilled into the stone door and disappeared. When Ji Tianqing first entered the Heavenly Tome Pavilion, he was quite surprised to see this scene. Now, he was used to it. Following a muffled creak 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 sound, the 2 stone doors slowly opened. A bright and dazzling golden light, as well as an ice-cold and dazzling cold light, immediately shone out from the crack of the door, enveloping Ji Tianqing's figure. He was full of anticipation. He stepped through the door and entered the main hall on the first floor of the pagoda. The spacious and bright main hall was at least 100 feet in radius. The surrounding walls were lit with gemstones and bright lights, emitting a dazzling brilliance. He walked to the middle of the main hall and stood still. He looked around and suddenly frowned. It was because the scene in the Divine Weapon Pavilion was not what he had expected. He originally thought that there would be many cabinets in the Divine Weapon Pavilion to display various divine weapons and magic treasures. However, the entire main hall was empty. There was no counter at all. On the ground of the main hall, there was a huge ancient array carved on it. Chapter 1423. Ji Tianqing's gaze was attracted by the ancient bronze cauldron. The design of the cauldron was very simple and clumsy. It was squarish and angular, appearing solemn and sacred. This ancient cauldron had 3 legs, 4 horns, and 8 ears. Countless patterns were carved on the cauldron, forming mysterious patterns one after another. Ji Tianqing walked around the cauldron and observed it closely. He only felt that this cauldron exuded an ancient aura. It faintly had a majestic and domineering aura that suppressed the heavens and earth. It also had an unfathomable sense of mystery. When he walked to the east side of the cauldron, he saw that there were 2 ancient black characters carved on the cauldron. The characters were vigorous and powerful, like the edge of a sword, revealing an incomparably fierce aura. 9 heavens. Ji Tianqing silently repeated these 2 words, secretly guessing. Could this ancient bronze cauldron's name be 9 heavens? Unfortunately, this was only his guess and could not be confirmed for the time being. He walked around the cauldron and returned to his original position, carefully observing the surroundings. The ground of the main hall was 100 feet wide, and it was an ancient and mysterious array. This giant bronze cauldron was right in the center of the array, and was the core of the array. Although the array had not been activated, the bronze cauldron was cold and lightless, without the slightest bit of temperature. But Ji Tianqing was very clear that the mysterious array beneath his feet was very profound and powerful. It was very likely to be a true god-level array. That ancient bronze cauldron must also be an extraordinary treasure. After a long while, he turned and walked towards the east side of the main hall. On the sturdy and thick wall, there were obviously many hidden compartments, used to store things. The mysterious array on the ground and that ancient cauldron seemed to be used for refining pills or refining weapons. This divine weapon pavilion should not be a place to store divine weapons and dharma treasures, but more like a workshop to forge divine weapons. This thought flashed across Ji Tianqing's mind, and he vaguely understood the purpose of the divine weapon pavilion. When he opened a few hidden compartments and saw the things stored in them, he was even more certain of this guess. Because the things stored in the hidden compartments were all rare and precious metals and ores, as well as all kinds of unknown strange materials. These things were obviously used to forge divine weapons and magic treasures. Ji Tianqing opened one secret compartment after another along the wall, checking the refining materials inside. Half an hour later, he finished counting. There were 360 secret compartments carved into the 4 walls of the main hall on the first floor, storing more than 300 kinds of refining materials. There were only a few materials that he had heard of and could possibly exist in the Tianxian land. Most of the materials were things that he had never seen or heard of before. He didn't even know the grades, origins, and uses of the materials. He saw that in the corner of the main hall, there was another staircase that led to the 2nd floor of the Divine Weapon Pavilion. However, when he stepped onto the golden jade stairs, he saw that there was a huge door at the end of the stairs. That was the door leading to the 2nd level. There were runes engraved on it. It was obvious that there was a powerful seal. He didn't even understand the grade of the array and the method of setting it up, so it was impossible for him to break it. Since he couldn't enter the 2nd floor, he could only move around on the 1st floor. His emotions had completely calmed down, and all the anticipation in his heart had dissipated. Originally, I thought that there were some powerful divine weapons stored here that could help me deal with the demon clan's elite warriors and the demon emperor. I didn't expect that there was a large amount of refining materials and a 9th heaven cauldron here. It was a place to forge weapons and magic treasures. Unfortunately, I don't know anything about those refining materials, and I don't know how to open the array and control the 9th heaven cauldron to refine weapons. To me, this divine weapon pavilion is temporarily not of any use. Ji Tianqing frowned and muttered a few words gloomily. At this time, a voice that he hadn't heard for a long time sounded in his mind. Who said that it's useless? Suddenly hearing this low and vigorous voice, Ji Tianqing's spirit was instantly shaken. He quickly asked, Burial of Heaven, you have finally awakened after sleeping for half a year? Burial of Heaven said with a calm tone, if there was enough time and the situation wasn't so tense, of course I would be willing to slowly recover. But time is running out. In this half a year, I can only do my best to absorb energy and recover as soon as possible. Ji Tianqing smiled and said, hearing you say this, there should be good news. How is your recovery now? About 40%. Burial of Heaven replied, and added, you have contributed to this. If you hadn't constantly snatched soul crystals from me, I wouldn't have recovered so quickly. Ji Tianqing nodded with relief and said with a smile, you've recovered about 40%. Even if the broken sword is still a half-step divine weapon, you are comparable to a primordial soul-level magic treasure. By the way, you said that this divine weapon pavilion can be used, what's going on? Burial of Heaven said in a serious tone, the divine weapon pavilion is the place where Kenshin forges divine weapons and refines magic treasures. And now I'm still a soul-level magic treasure, unable to break through to the primordial soul level. If I can recover to the primordial soul level, it will definitely be of great benefit to you and help you increase your battle prowess by several times. If you didn't open the divine weapon pavilion, you would have to search for materials all over the world and return to the sun-moon furnace to help me recover to the primordial soul level. Now it's convenient, all of this can be done in the divine weapon pavilion. After listening to Burial of Heaven's explanation, Ji Tianqing was immediately shocked and asked with joy, Burial of Heaven, do you mean that you can forge a sword body in the divine weapon pavilion and recover to the primordial soul level? There is an ancient bronze cauldron here, and more than 300 kinds of materials. Unfortunately, I don't know how to open the formation, and can't distinguish the materials. Before he finished, Burial of Heaven said with certainty, it's okay if you don't know, I can teach you how to open the formation and choose the materials. The Nine Heavens Cauldron is Kenshin's divine weapon, and this formation is also a real divine formation. With your strength, you can't understand it, let alone control it. However, you don't need to study this divine formation, you just need to know how to open it. After receiving its affirmative answer, Ji Tianqing was even more delighted and hurriedly nodded, since that's the case, then it's easy. We still have 4 months, and we'll try to help you recover to the primordial soul level as soon as possible. Burial of Heaven didn't waste any time and said calmly, 4 months is enough, you can go and choose the materials first. I need 6 kinds of materials, glazed fire true gold, silver feather illusory spirit stone, 9 nether iron, sacred flame glazed stone. It told Ji Tianqing in detail about the appearance and characteristics of the 6 kinds of materials. Ji Tianqing opened the secret compartments in the wall one by one, looking for the 6 kinds of materials it needed. The grades of these 6 kinds of materials, among the more than 300 kinds of materials, were only below average and weren't particularly rare. Ji Tianqing only used half an hour to find all 6 kinds of materials. Chapter 1424. Under the guidance of the Burial of Heaven, Ji Tianqing only used 4 hours to successfully activate the array. Of course, this divine array was incomparably profound. It was still not something he could comprehend and control. All he could do was activate this divine array. As for how the divine array operated, what mysteries it contained, what structure it was, and so on, it had nothing to do with him. After the divine array began to operate, the ground within a radius of 100 feet lit up with golden light. Seal characters and mysterious symbols that covered the sky and earth surged out. Endless ancient characters and symbols, like butterflies, flew up and surged toward the Nine Heavens divine cauldron like a tide. The huge Nine Heavens divine cauldron also released a sacred golden light. Many patterns and characters appeared on its surface. Inside the divine cauldron, the void divine fire was born. It turned into a black-purple cloud and started to spin inside the cauldron like a vortex. An invisible force filled the entire hall, causing Ji Tianqing to feel the pressure double. Sweat poured down his body like rain. Tianqing, go and cultivate in peace. I will come out of seclusion in 3 months. The Burial of Heaven instructed before flying into the Nine Heavens divine cauldron and into the black-purple void divine fire. Ji Tianqing followed its instructions and put the 6 refining materials into the divine cauldron. Then, he quickly left the hall. Swoosh! After leaving the divine weapon pavilion, he returned to Kenshin's tomb and appeared in front of the black tombstone. Next, what he needed to do was to comprehend the 3rd level of the sword soul path and continue to cultivate in seclusion to increase his strength. His primordial spirit returned to his body and began to comprehend cultivation techniques in peace. He worked hard to increase his strength. Previously, the mansion master had told him that the cultivation resources of the four of them were enough to support the operation of the secret room for 2 months. 2 months in the outside world was 20 months in the secret room. He still had 4 months. He had to use this time to increase his strength as much as possible. In Central State City, the situation was getting more and more tense. The scouts at the front lines would send back the latest news every day, reporting the movements of the demon army. 3 days ago, the demon army was 150,000 miles away from Central State. Along the way, they destroyed 3 cities and slaughtered hundreds of thousands of fleeing civilians and martial artists. 2 days ago, the demon army was 130,000 miles away from Central State. And now, the Devil Race's army was only 100,000 kilometers away from the Central Plains. The human army in Central Continent City could already clearly see that the northern skies were covered in a layer of black energy, as well as wisps of blood light flickering about. The Demon Race army came closer and closer. Central State City was in imminent danger. The number of the human army gradually increased to more than 13 million. Central Continent City's defensive fortifications were doubled, and the might of the formations was also raised to the peak. Countless soldiers and martial artists were ready to fight at any moment. Soon, another 5 days had passed. This time, there was no need for the scouts to report the news. The Imperial Emperor, the Imperial Tutor, and the human experts could clearly see the situation in the north. The 10 million demon army had already reached Central Continent City, stopping 10,000 li to the north. The mighty army of Devil Race soldiers was like a vast black tide, carrying with it a monstrous devil chi and blood chi. The Devil Race army stopped and set up camp on a plain 10,000 li away. While recuperating and organizing the army, they quickly built a devil army camp, constructing underground devil caves and tunnels. When dusk arrived, the sky to the north of Central State City was covered in black clouds, turning into a dark zone. Howling northern winds blew over, carrying with them strands of devil chi, as well as a strong smell of blood and killing intent. The human soldiers in Central State City all realized a problem. The territory north of Central State City had already completely fallen. The decisive battle that would decide the fate of humanity was about to arrive. However, the Devil Race army had traveled a long way, so they were not in a rush to attack. They set up camp outside Central State City, resting for an entire 3 days without launching an attack. However, tens of thousands of Devil Race scouts and scouts were always circling around Central State City, constantly monitoring the movements in the city. Both sides had set up their battle formations inside and outside Central State City. There were already no secrets to speak of, both sides clearly aware of the other side's military strength. Regardless of whether it was the human or Devil Race soldiers, they all understood a problem. If nothing unexpected happened, the human army would be defeated without a doubt. They would not be able to defend Central State City. As long as the continent's most sacred city fell, the human imperial court would quickly be destroyed. At that time, the end of the human race would arrive. When night fell, Central State City began to sparsely light up. Inside the dignified city lord's mansion, the discussion hall was brightly lit. More than 10 human experts were currently gathered in the hall, discussing important military matters with the Imperial Emperor. The Imperial Emperor sat at the head seat, the Imperial Tutor standing to the side. 6 people stood on the left side of the hall, the 4 directions Divine General, Yun Zhongqi, and Long Yun Shao. On the right side of the hall stood 7 soul refinement experts. These were all martial experts from the common people, recruited by the Imperial Court to resist the Devil Race army. Some of them were the leaders of powerful factions, some of them were the sect masters or old ancestors of peak sections. Some of them were wild cranes that roamed the continent, and some of them were hermits that had not appeared in the world for several hundred years. Even the continent's famous divine Dr. Bai Li was standing in this group. The human race had billions of martial artists and a very deep foundation. Naturally, countless experts were born. In times of peace, many experts kept a low profile and did not reveal themselves. Now that the human race was at a critical juncture of life and death, even hermits that did not care about the world would step forward bravely. The imperial emperor looked at everyone with a dignified gaze and said in a low voice, "Everyone here is an expert of my race, and also a commander that stood out from millions of martial artists. At this time of crisis, when our race is at a critical juncture of life and death, everyone here is shouldering the lives of 13 million soldiers and the hope of 10 billion humans." It was clear that the 12 soul refinement experts and Long Yun Shao in the hall were the commanders of the 13 million soldiers, each of them leading 1,000,000 soldiers. The imperial emperor paused for a moment, then continued, "As for everyone's duties, we will maintain the same. The 4 directions divine generals will guard the 4 city gates to prevent the devil race from attacking separately. The 1,000,000 soldiers led by the Son of Heaven will still be in charge of the 5 defensive formations. The other commanders will maintain a state of readiness at all times and will immediately support the other commanders if there is a situation. The devil race army has already set up camp outside the city for 3 days, they should have recovered their strength by now. If this emperor is not wrong, tonight or tomorrow night, the devil race army will launch an attack. After all, it is more advantageous for the devil race to attack at night." All the commanders nodded, agreeing with the imperial emperor's words. Only the Son of Heaven, Long Yun Shao, frowned and thought for a moment, then said in a low voice, "Imperial Emperor, now that Central State City has been fortified by us, its defenses are very strong. If the Devil Emperor and the Ancestor Devil God do not attack, we will be able to resist the 10 million strong Devil Race army, even defending for a year is not a problem. However, once the Devil Emperor and the Ancestor Devil God attack, none of us will be able to stop them." Chapter 1425. Long Yunxiao's question was also what all the commanders were most worried about. If it was just a battle between 2 armies, the humans would naturally have the advantage as they were defending the city. With the powerful defenses of Central State City, the humans would naturally be in an undefeatable position. However, the demon's strongest trump card was the demon emperor who possessed a heaven-defying divine artifact and the newly reborn ancestral demon god. If no one could stop the demon emperor and the demon god, the 2 of them could destroy the entire Central State City and annihilate the human army. All the commanders looked at the emperor with shining eyes, their eyes filled with anticipation. They imagined that the emperor had a countermeasure and trump card. However, the emperor also frowned, his expression becoming more and more serious. No one knew if it was to stabilize the morale of the army or if it was true, but he said with a dignified expression, "This emperor believes that this is a problem that all of you and my soldiers are worried about. Please do not worry, this emperor has already made the corresponding arrangements and countermeasures. Everyone, just think about it, from the ancient times until now, how many hardships and difficulties have my race experienced? In the end, didn't we survive and become the most prosperous race on the continent? Please believe that no matter how dangerous and difficult it is, as long as we are united, we will definitely defeat the demons. The demons will never win against the righteous." The emperor's tone was vigorous and filled with the power to inspire people. All the commanders were shaken, the flames of hope burning in their eyes. The imperial emperor gave a few more orders before asking the commanders to leave the hall. After everyone left, only the emperor and the imperial tutor were left in the hall. The emperor had a worried expression. He sighed silently and asked the imperial tutor beside him, "Imperial tutor, is there any news from the emperor's residence?" The imperial tutor stroked his beard and said calmly, "I just met the great divine master today. The great divine master told me 2 pieces of news, one good and one bad." Without waiting for him to finish, the emperor frowned and said, "Let's talk about the bad news first." The imperial tutor said in a low voice, "Several days ago, the palace lord passed away." The emperor immediately frowned, his face filled with shock. What? The manor lord was only injured by the devil emperor. How could he lose his life? The imperial tutor quickly explained, the grand master said that it was impossible for the prefecture master to sacrifice himself to help Ji Tianqing. Fulfill Ji Tianqing's wish? The emperor raised his eyebrows and vaguely understood something. The second piece of good news is about Ji Tianqing? Yes. The imperial tutor nodded and said seriously, Ji Tianqing has broken through to the primordial soul realm not long ago. He has also condensed his primordial soul Dharma form and Dharmakaya. He has even caused a rare phenomenon of the heavens and earth. Hearing this, the emperor's expression eased up a lot. He nodded slightly and said, if the Manor Lord's death was really to fulfill Ji Tianqing's wish, then Ji Tianqing should also inherit his orthodoxy. In this way, I can have another primordial soul stage elder to fight alongside me. However, Ji Tianqing has just reached the primordial soul realm. I'm afraid he can't kill the Devil Emperor, much less fight against the ancestral demon god. The imperial tutor also fell silent, not knowing how to answer. After all, he was also very worried. Soon, it was midnight. The sky was as black as ink, without a single star. The biting cold northern wind howled, carrying the demonic chi and death chi of the demon race's main camp, blowing toward Central State City. 1,000 li outside the city, in a certain low-lying mountain range, a dozen dark red balls of bloody light were hiding. These bloody lights were all soul refinement stage blood gods. They were scattered in the mountain range of 1,000 li. They worked together to cast a spell, releasing all kinds of poisonous black chi, poisonous plagues, bloody chi, and soul-devouring cold winds. All kinds of calamities and tribulations turned into wisps of black chi and bloody chi, merging into the night and flying toward Central State City with the northern wind. There were even 2 blood gods who released poisonous black water into the mountain range, slowly spreading toward Central State City. This was Demon Commander Dark Knight's order. He wanted them to display their abilities before the battle began and do their best to create disasters for Central State City. Once the great battle began, they would use this chance to create even more terrifying disasters and slaughter as many humans as possible. The collected blood, energy, and souls would be fed to the ancestral demon god to devour, helping the ancestral demon god recover his magic power. In the gloomy night sky, there were still countless small black bugs flying about, silently throwing themselves at Central Continent City. These small black insects were only the size of a fingernail. They were completely black, but their defenses were powerful and they were extremely fast. These demonic insects were underworld bees, Demon Commander Dark Knight's trump card. Millions of underworld bees silently approached Central State City. They were about to pass through the depths of the earth and infiltrate the city to cause chaos. They possessed powerful attacks and poison, and their defenses and speed were extremely fast. They came and went without a trace. Each netherworld wasp could kill a Tongxian realm martial artist on its own. Besides this, Demon Commander Dark Knight had also laid down several plans. In the demon race's main camp, there were more than 1 million demon soldiers working together to activate a super great formation. This great formation had been set up by the Demon Emperor and many experts over the course of 3 days. After the great formation was activated, it would produce 3,000 li of demonic clouds that would cover the sky, protecting the entire demon race's main camp. Moreover, there would be over 100 blood gods' Dharma eyes in the great formation. They could monitor the movements of the demon race's main camp, and they could also attack and defend at the same time. In short, the demon race's main army had already finished their preparations for battle, accumulating power and waiting for action. About an hour later, the originally quiet and peaceful Central State City suddenly lit up with the dazzling light of a formation. A commotion appeared near the northern city wall, and noisy shouts sounded. Long Yunxiao, who was in charge of the great defensive formation, sensed the abnormalities on the northern city wall and hurriedly rushed over to check the situation. He had asked the general guarding the city and found out that a large number of demonic insects wanted to infiltrate Central State City from underground. There were also various kinds of demonic chi and poison that wanted to infiltrate the city during the night. Fortunately, the northern city's great defensive formation had always been activated. When those demonic insects and poisonous demonic chi touched the great formation, they suffered a backlash and suppression from the formation, causing a commotion. After Long Yunxiao learned of the situation, he personally checked the great formation. After confirming that there was no problem, he was relieved. He gave a few words of advice to the general guarding the city, then turned and left. At the same time, more than 10 blood gods clones sent the news of the plan's failure back to the demon race's main camp. In the depths of the demon race's main camp, there was a newly built black palace. It was the temporary residence of the demon emperor. He was sitting in the main hall with his eyes closed, holding the demon god scepter in his hand. There was a black shadow floating at the top of the scepter. It was the great Jia Luo Brahma's soul nightmare. Demon General Mingyi reported the news of the plan's failure to the demon emperor truthfully. After the demon emperor heard it, he immediately frowned and sneered. He. Long Xuankuan, this bastard, he really made Central State City's defense very tight. Does he want to hide in the city like a turtle? In that case, Mingyi, immediately lead the vanguard army to attack Central State City. Let this emperor see what kind of trash these defeated soldiers are. Chapter 1426. After the demon emperor finished speaking, he threw the demon god scepter to Demon General Dark Knight. This ancient scepter was about 1.5 meters long, with 2 dark red blood dragons engraved on its handle. At the top of the scepter, an evil god with 3 heads and 6 arms was engraved with a domineering aura. This demon god scepter was a divine item of the demon race that had been passed down since the ancient times. It symbolized the majesty of the demon emperor. It was a primordial spirit-level magic treasure, and could be called a divine weapon in the Tian-Xian continent. However, ever since the demon emperor had obtained the extreme Yin soul-splitting ruler, the demon god scepter's function had greatly diminished. Demon General Dark Knight held the demon god scepter respectfully. After bowing to the demon emperor, he quickly left the demon palace to gather the vanguard army. The incubus at the top of the demon god scepter twisted its body with excitement. It continuously transformed into various shadows and black fog, letting out waves of sinister laughter. Keek. Ever since I received the demon emperor's instruction, I have been cultivating in seclusion for an entire year. Finally, I have mastered that secret technique. However, I have not used it yet. Tonight, I can test its power on these human insects. The incubus bared its fangs and brandished its claws. It could not wait to slaughter the human soldiers. Demon General Dark Knight held the demon god scepter and carried out the demon emperor's order with an ice-cold expression. He did not pay attention to the incubus words. After a short half-hour, he quickly gathered 1,000,000 vanguard army. Like a black tide, they rushed out of the underground cave and rushed toward Central State City. Although the demon race army moved with the cover of the pitch-black night and monstrous demonic fog. However, when 1,000,000 demon race soldiers galloped over the mountains and plains, they could not help but let out loud rumbling noises that spread far and wide. 4 hours later, the demon race army rushed 4,000 miles to the north of Central State City. At this time, the scouts and sentries of Central State City all sensed the demon race's movements. The human soldiers near the North City Gate immediately blew a loud bugle horn and lit a dazzling beacon fire. In the human camp in the city, 1,000,000 soldiers slept with their clothes on. They were ready to get up at any time and join the battle. When the horn sounded throughout the northern city, the 1,000,000 soldiers under the divine general of the northern frontier immediately gathered and rushed to the northern city wall. The imperial tutor, the northern godly general, Yun Zhongqi, miracle Dr. Bailey, and a few other human masters all climbed up the northern city gate and looked at the land in the north. Everyone's expression was solemn, their killing intent surging as they waited for the arrival of the demon race's army. The imperial tutor held the horsetail whisk in his hand, his eyes twinkling as he said to the commanders around him, "Everyone, there's no need to worry. This is the vanguard of the demon army. According to my estimation, the devil race army is only 1,000,000 strong, and they are here to test the waters." The celestial emperor was right. 3 days have passed. The devil emperor must have been unable to suppress his killing intent and immediately launched an attack. The commanders nodded, their expressions much more relaxed. Yun Zhongqi's lips curled into a cold smile, and he said hatefully, "By the time the demon army reaches the city, it will be dawn, and the people will be most relaxed." The devil emperor is as cunning as ever, not letting go of any details. The northern frontier godly general stared at the night sky with sharp eyes and said in a low voice, "This is the first and most important battle. The outcome will greatly affect the morale. We cannot lose." Miracle Dr. Bailey nodded and stroked his beard. "We cannot afford to lose this battle. Let's see who the commander is first." The Imperial Tutor smiled and waved his horsetail whisk. He said with certainty, "Who else can it be other than Demon Commander Dark Knight?" The few demon marshals under the demonic emperor had long been killed by Tian Xing. Even the dozens of blood gods in the spirit refinement realm were killed by Tian Xing. Only a dozen are left. Hearing these two sentences, Miracle Dr. Bailey and Yun Zhongqi revealed gratified smiles. They were quite proud. Very quickly, another 2 hours passed. The demon race army charged over in a grandiose manner and was about to reach the outskirts of Zhongzhou City. In the gloomy night sky, a dark red streak of light galloped over. Everyone looked up and saw 8 Devil Clan cultivators flying over together. The leader was a tall and sturdy demon race expert covered in black armor. It was Demon Commander Dark Knight. Of the 7 experts following behind it, only 2 were demon spirit controllers, while the other 5 were blood god's sons. Demon Commander Dark Knight and the others stopped 100 kilometers outside the city. They stood in the night sky and sized up the situation at the top of the city. Before long, the million-strong vanguard army charged outside the city. Hundreds of thousands of demon race soldiers formed a battle formation and joined forces to release powerful spells, launching an attack on Zhongzhou City. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Dazzling dark red light condensed into saber, spear, sword shadows, and sky-splitting blades, bombarding the northern city gate like rain. All kinds of dark green, dark blue, and blood-colored demon fire also condensed into huge fireballs, pillars of fire, and demon phantoms, pouring down on the northern city gate. At the very front of the battle formation, the 2 spirit masters used secret techniques to summon more than 300,000 undead skeletons, which surged under the city gate like a white tide. The first battle of the decisive battle between the 2 armies thus began. The human army guarded the city tightly. Hundreds of thousands of people supported the operation of the formation, blocking the attacks of the demon race army. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers climbed up the city wall and lined up on the top of the wall. They formed a crossbow formation and shot a rain of arrows at the demon race army. There were also many soldiers controlling huge ballistae and catapults, fiercely bombarding the skeleton army outside the city. There were even martial experts and experts who released all kinds of ultimate secret techniques, pouring down raging flames, gales, and ice blades and frost swords that covered the sky and covered the earth into the demon race army's formation. The Imperial Tutor and the other commanders stood on the city wall. They were not in a hurry to make a move. They all stared at Demon Commander Dark Knight and the Blood Gods. When the Blood Gods saw that the battle had begun, they could not help but make a move. They released powerful strength and created all kinds of calamities. A blood god released an earthquake tribulation, causing the surrounding thousands of kilometers to tremble violently. A super earthquake occurred, causing the entire Zhongzhou city to tremble violently. A blood god released a flood tribulation, causing blood to gush out from the ground and fill the sky. It turned into a huge wave that was more than a dozen zhang tall, violently smashing into the Zhongzhou city. There was also a poisonous plague and poisonous black water that covered the sky, also surging towards Zhongzhou city. As long as the slightest flaw or crack appeared in the defensive formation of Zhongzhou city, those calamities would spread into the city, causing immeasurable losses. Seeing this scene, Yun Zhongqi and the other commanders all made a move, blocking the calamities created by the blood gods. The Imperial Tutor was still standing on top of the city gate, staring at Demon Commander Dark Knight with a sharp gaze. He could clearly see that Demon Commander Dark Knight was holding a black scepter in his hand. There was a black shadow swaying at the top of the scepter. He obviously knew that the scepter was the Demon God Scepter. The black shadow attached to the Demon God Scepter was the Nightmare. Chapter 1427. Facts proved that the Imperial Tutor's guess was correct. The Blood God Scions and Vanguard Army under Demon Commander Dark Knight launched an attack without any regard for their own safety. Only it stood in the dark night sky, silently looking at the Demon God Scepter in its hand. No one knew what it communicated with the incubus through voice transmission. A moment later, when the two armies were fighting fiercely, shaking the heavens and the earth in chaos, its figure quietly disappeared. Whoosh! It quietly drilled into the dark ground and let go of the Demon God Scepter. Nightmare Lord, be careful. Ben Shui will cover you. It stared at the Demon God Scepter and warned in a cold tone. Ha ha ha. Just wait for my good news. The Nightmare Lord replied confidently. It immediately controlled the Demon God Scepter and drilled into the depths of the ground. The demonic God Scepter was its body. It hid itself 100 li underground and sped toward Central Continent City. Demon Commander Dark Knight also turned and left, flying back into the dark night sky. It looked down at the battlefield below and saw the undead skeletons and the demon army surging toward Central State City like a tide. It waved its hand and used a secret technique, releasing 1,000,000 netherworld bees to launch an attack. Whoosh whoosh. More than 1,000,000 netherworld bees streaked across the night sky as fast as lightning. They surged out like a black tide, rushing towards the North City Gate. The North City Gate and several dozen li of city walls were protected by a huge 7-colored light barrier. This was a primordial spirit formation personally arranged by the Emperor. It had a powerful defensive power. Demon Commander Dark Knight did not expect the netherworld bees to break through the formation. It only put pressure on Central State City to cover the Nightmare Lord's plan. Of course, after releasing the netherworld bees, it also took out a pitch-black sword and bravely attacked Central State City Gate. Ghosts and gods avoid me. It shouted coldly and angrily. Holding the pitch-black sword with both hands, it slashed out a blood-red sword light that could split heaven and earth, slashing towards the majestic North City Gate. Pung! The 300 zhang long blood-red sword light slashed the defensive formation, exploding with a world-shaking sound. The 7-colored light shield of the array formation trembled and rippled as it was struck by the sword. Many of the human warriors who were supporting the operation of the Grand Formation paled in pain. You reptiles of the human race are actually cowering like turtles. Who dares to fight with me? Demon Commander Dark Knight stood majestically in the night sky with a sword in his hand and shouted with a cold voice. Its figure was tall and robust, and it wore black armor. Its entire body was suffused with dense devil chi, and it seemed to be extraordinarily domineering and valiant. Seeing this scene, the Devil Race Army's morale was immediately boosted. Their battle cries shook the heavens, and they became even more ferocious. Hundreds of thousands of demon soldiers joined forces to attack, and the defensive formation was actually shaking. Light flashed, and it seemed as if it was about to break. The human soldiers who were supporting the defensive formation were under even greater pressure. Many of them were seriously injured, vomiting blood, or lying unconscious on the ground. When the Imperial Tutor saw this scene, he pointed at Demon General Dark Knight outside the city and ordered the several commanders beside him, "You guys, join hands to deal with it. It's best if you can kill it." One of the commanders stared blankly for a moment and muttered in his heart. Demon General Dark Knight is the #1 general under the Demon Emperor. He has the strength of the 9th layer of the refined soul layer. We are not his match at all. The Imperial Tutor can fight him, but why don't you do it yourself? The Imperial Tutor saw his strange expression and explained, "You guys keep a close eye on Demon General Dark Knight. This seat has more important things to do." One of the commanders casually asked, "Your Majesty Imperial Tutor, what is it?" "Demon God Scepter, Nightmare." The Imperial Tutor dropped these words and quickly turned to leave. From the start of the war, the Imperial Tutor had been watching Demon General Dark Knight, and noticed the Demon God Scepter and Nightmare. Now that Demon General Dark Knight had taken the initiative to attack, the Demon God Scepter and Nightmare had disappeared. With the Imperial Tutor's shrewdness and wisdom, how could he not detect a plot? Whoosh! His figure streaked across the night sky like lightning, and immediately drilled into the dark underground, flying towards the depths of the earth. "Damned Nightmare, there must be some plot, or he wants to sneak into the city from underground. Although there is an underground city and a powerful defensive array, that demon god scepter is a primordial spirit-grade magic treasure, and it is very likely to break the array. Demon General Dark Knight is leading the army to attack the northern gate, and Nightmare is very likely to sneak into the city from the other 3 directions. This kind of diversion tactic, do you think you can hide it from this seat? With this thought in mind, the Imperial Tutor promptly released the power of his soul, enveloping an area of 80 li, and carefully searched. At that time, when Central State City was arranging various defensive arrays, he was a participant and also a supervisor. He knew very well where the weak points of each great formation were. He first started from the defensive array in the eastern part of the city, and gradually searched the southern part of the city, and then the western part of the city. In a short half an hour, he searched through all of Central Continent City's underground. However, he did not find the demon god scepter, nor did he detect the aura of Nightmare. Strange, the aura of the demon god scepter is very obvious, so why can't this seat sense it? The Imperial Tutor temporarily stopped his search, full of doubts. At the same time, the great battle outside the northern gate had already reached its fiercest level. More than 300,000 undead skeletons had been blasted to pieces by the human soldiers, piling up into small mountains of white bones outside the city. At least 100,000 demon soldiers had died outside the city walls, their mutilated corpses scattered on the ground. Black and purple demon blood converged into small streams and flowed into the moat, causing the water of the moat to swell, completely turning it dark red. However, this was not enough to intimidate the demon army. On the contrary, it made them even more excited and frenzied, attacking fiercely with murderous intent. The defensive array protecting the northern wall was actually blasted open several times, with cracks and gaps appearing. Although, those cracks and gaps were quickly repaired. However, the blood mist, poison, and plague released by the blood god Scions took advantage of this opportunity to invade the city, causing a large number of deaths. In the night sky, Yun Zhongqi and several other commanders were besieging Demon Commander Dark Knight. Their strength was not as great as Demon Commander Dark Knight's, but they had the advantage in numbers, so they had the upper hand from the start. However, Demon Commander Dark Knight's 9 underworld armor had an incomparably strong defense, and only nascent soul magic treasures could break through it. As a result, it was in an almost undefeatable position against the human commanders. Just as the war was in full swing, and both sides were fiercely fighting, a hidden shadow suddenly flew out from a corner of the city wall. This was an ancient black scepter. It silently flew across the night sky and drilled into a human camp. This temporary camp was a manor with a radius of several thousand zhang, and there were more than 100,000 human soldiers stationed inside. When the black scepter flew into the manor, the mysterious shadow in the scepter immediately released invisible ripples of energy, spreading in all directions. The 120,000 soldiers in the manor were all dressed in armor, resting with swords and weapons as their pillows, ready to reinforce the front line at any time. Chapter 1428. 120,000 human soldiers were silently affected by the Nightmare Lord's secret technique. Everyone fell into a dream and could not wake up at all. The demon god scepter floated in the night sky, flickering with specks of red light, appearing very strange and mysterious. Within the scepter, the Nightmare Lord had already entered the dream domain created by the scepter and was wantonly slaughtering. The strange dreamland domain was like a boundless black space. In the black space, there were densely packed white balls of mist floating. There were more than 120,000 of them, forming a white sea. These white balls of mist were the dreams of the soldiers and were closely connected to their souls. The Nightmare Lord transformed into a dark purple giant demon that was 300 meters tall. Its appearance was hideous and terrifying, and it had a pair of demon wings. Its arms were thick and slender, and its 10 fingers were as sharp as knives. It waved its arms and formed a mysterious seal, releasing a powerful energy as it used a secret technique. Dream Soul Kill. With a low roar, an invisible mysterious force exploded, rolling up a violent shockwave, sweeping in all directions. Bam 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 bam. Wherever the mysterious energy swept, countless balls of mist would explode, creating a series of dull sounds. In just a few breaths' time, 120,000 balls of mist had all exploded, turning into a milky white air current that rolled like a wave. In the vast manner, 120,000 human warriors, who had been sleeping, were all killed without making a sound. They still maintained their resting postures, not moving at all, but their souls had already been destroyed, and their corpses were gradually becoming cold. On the surface, they did not seem to have any injuries, and not even a drop of blood could be seen. But just like that, they were silently slaughtered in a strange way. Ha 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 ha. The dream's soul kill is actually so powerful. In the dream, I am an invincible god. The Nightmare Lord laughed excitedly, crazily devouring the wave-like white air current, refining it into its own power. That was the dream of 120,000 soldiers, and also the power of their souls. The Nightmare Lord quickly devoured the white air current, and its power was greatly increased. It left the dream domain in satisfaction and returned to the demon god scepter. In the night, the manor was still silent, and covered in a layer of cold death aura. But no one noticed this change, and no one knew what was going on. Shwa! The demon god scepter streaked across the night sky, quietly leaving the manor and flying to the next military camp. A moment later, the demonic god scepter flew into an ancient and dignified palace. This palace covered an area of 3,000 feet in radius. There were a few courtyards around it, and there were many secret rooms underground. About 80,000 human soldiers were stationed in this palace. They were warriors under the command of a human commander. They were resting in the military camp, waiting for orders, and could support the battle on the 4 city gates at any time. The palace was heavily guarded both inside and outside. There were hundreds of guards patrolling the area, as well as dozens of open and hidden sentries. However, to the King of Nightmares, all of this was useless. The demonic god scepter concealed its aura and sneaked into the palace. The King of Nightmares began to use his secret technique again, releasing a mysterious, formless energy that enveloped a radius of 10,000 feet. Next, the same scene played out. After being affected by the mysterious power, more than 80,000 human soldiers fell into a deep dream and fell unconscious on the ground. Regardless of whether it was True Energy Realm or Tongxian Realm ordinary soldiers, or Origin Core Realm or Heavenly Origin Realm generals, none of them were able to withstand the Nightmare's secret art. Within the dream domain, the King of Nightmares began its massacre. It laughed savagely as it detonated more than 80,000 balls of white mist. After killing all the soldiers, it devoured their souls and dream domain energy. In a short span of 100 breaths, the entire palace fell into a deathly silence. Just like that, over 80,000 human warriors died in a strange way. The demonic god scepter silently left the palace and flew through the night sky. The King of Nightmares looked around with greedy eyes, searching for the next hunting ground. The imperial tutor gripped his horsetail whisk and flew through the night sky with a gloomy expression, frowning as he pondered. That damned King of Nightmares, just where is it hiding? Since it has appeared, it must have taken action. It definitely won't let this matter rest. Perhaps it's hiding near the northern city gate, waiting for the demon army to break through the defensive array so that it can charge into the city? This thought flashed through the imperial tutor's mind as he sped back to the northern city gate. Previously, he had searched the eastern, western, and southern city gates, but he had not searched near the northern city gate. He had a faint premonition that the King of Nightmares was hiding near the northern city gate. Whoosh! He cut through the night sky as fast as lightning, flying over an ancient manor. This place was only 20 kilometers away from the northern city gate. The imperial tutor's spiritual energy inadvertently swept across the manor. He immediately sensed that something was amiss and hurriedly stopped. He knew very well that the manor was an army camp, and there were more than 100,000 human soldiers stationed there. At this moment, although the manor was brightly lit, there was not a single person in sight. Furthermore, after he used his spiritual energy to investigate, he discovered that the 100,000 soldiers in the manor had all lost their vitality and turned into ice-cold corpses. This result caused his body to shake violently, and his expression changed on the spot. How could this be? More than 100,000 soldiers, without a single injury, died without a sound? The imperial tutor's expression darkened. He hurriedly landed in the manor and carefully inspected the injuries of the soldiers. A moment later, he found the result. They actually died in their sleep, and their souls were directly obliterated. This is the King of Nightmares method. The damned King of Nightmares. It has already snuck into the city and begun to assassinate our soldiers. The imperial tutor murmured in a cold voice. He was so angry that his white beard trembled. He hurriedly left the manor and flew into the dark night sky. His left hand formed a seal, and his right hand waved the horsetail whisk, beginning to cast a secret technique. Open the third eye. His left hand formed a seal, and a dazzling golden light flashed. He wiped his eyes, and his pupils instantly turned golden. In the blink of an eye, his eyes turned into the legendary secret technique, third eye. It had the ability to see through illusions, fog, and camouflage, and could see things that ordinary experts could not. He stood high in the sky, and his golden third eye overlooked the northern city district. Soon, he discovered all kinds of strange phenomena. At least 5 army camps and 600,000 human soldiers had been brutally murdered by the King of Nightmares. The 5 army camps seemed peaceful on the surface, but they were actually places of death, filled with an invisible aura of death. The souls of the soldiers stationed in the camps had long been obliterated, and they had turned into ice-cold corpses. When the imperial tutor's third eye swept across an army camp 20 kilometers away, he immediately saw a black shadow casting a spell on 100,000 soldiers. I've finally found you. Damned King of Nightmares, let's see where you can escape to this time. The imperial tutor's voice was cold and angry. He waved the horsetail whisk in his hand and rushed over like a flash of light. Chapter 1429. Swoosh. In the blink of an eye, the imperial tutor had teleported 10 miles away and arrived above the military camp. The dark and cold demonic god scepter was floating in the military camp, releasing invisible demonic power. The incubus entered the dream realm and transformed into a 1,000 feet tall demon. It looked at the dense white fog and laughed proudly. It liked to control the dream realm and rampage in other people's dreams, slaughtering wantonly. Especially after it had been in seclusion for a year and mastered the dream's soul kill. It wanted to kill and enjoy the pleasure of being a god in the dream realm. However, just as it was about to use the secret technique to kill the 100,000 soldiers, a dazzling golden light descended from the sky and struck the demonic god scepter. Bam! With a dull explosion, the demonic god scepter was sent flying and smashed into a palace not far away. Kaboom! A huge hole was blasted in the majestic palace. Half of the wall collapsed, and countless bricks and rubble splattered everywhere. Although the demonic god scepter was an immortal soul-level magic treasure with extremely strong defense, it was not damaged. However, the incubus's plan was thwarted. The dream realm shook violently, and the secret technique it was about to use was interrupted. Swoosh! The dream realm dissipated and it returned to the top of the demonic god scepter. It turned into a black shadow and looked at the night sky outside the ruins. The imperial tutor quickly waved the horsetail whisk in his hand, and instantly, 6 golden lights shot towards the demonic god scepter. Incubus! You damned demon, your death is not to be regretted. The imperial tutor roared angrily. His body emitted a dazzling golden light and released a powerful aura. Bam! 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 The incubus could not dodge in time and was hit by the 6 golden lights. A series of dull sounds rang out. The demonic god scepter was sent flying again and smashed into the ground, creating a huge crater in the ground. The ground in a radius of 10,000 feet shook violently. Such a shocking commotion did not wake up the 100,000 soldiers in the military camp. Everyone was still in a state of deep sleep and could not wake up from the dream. Seeing this, the imperial tutor used the soul-shaking roar and roared. Roar! The sound waves, which contained powerful soul power undulations, engulfed the entire military camp and covered the 100,000 soldiers. Immediately, everyone's faces turned pale from the shock, and they were immediately freed from the dreamland. Many of them had a splitting headache. They hugged their heads and groaned in pain. Some of the weaker soldiers even had blood flowing out of their noses and mouths. The imperial tutor's method of forcefully awakening the soldiers was too simple and crude. It caused some damage to their bodies and souls. But in such a critical situation, this was the only way he could solve the problem effectively. The demonic god scepter flew out of the deep pit and floated in the night sky. The king of nightmares roared angrily. "Imperial tutor, you despicable old thing, how dare you ruin my plans? I'm going to kill you." As he roared, the demonic god scepter shot out several streaks of dark red light towards the imperial tutor. Swish! Swish! The 4 streaks of blood-red light were all 30 meters long. They erupted with extremely violent power and engulfed the imperial tutor's figure. The imperial preceptor waved his horsetail whisk, and golden light danced in the air, forming a golden wall in front of him. Bang! 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 The 4 streaks of blood-red light hit the golden wall, producing a series of muffled sounds that echoed in the night sky. The golden wall and the blood-red light streaks collapsed at the same time, exploding into fragments that flew in all directions. The imperial tutor was also sent flying 100 meters away. He crashed into a house and shattered the entire house. The terrifying shockwave swept across a radius of a few hundred meters and sent thousands of soldiers flying. The soldiers came to their senses and realized that a strong enemy had invaded. They hurriedly shouted and roared, seeking help. At the same time, some of the stronger experts joined forces to attack the demonic god scepter. The demonic god scepter ignored everyone's attacks and released blood-red ripples that spread in all directions. Immediately, several hundred elite experts were sent flying. Those Yuan Dan experts all had blood spurting out from their orifices or their bodies exploded. More than half of them died on the spot. The imperial tutor arrived just in time and used his technique to block the blood-red ripples. His left hand formed a seal and his right hand waved his horsetail whisk. He stood majestically in the night sky and used his secret technique to attack the Nightmare Lord. However, the Nightmare Lord used the demonic god scepter as its body and could block almost all secret technique attacks. It blocked the imperial tutor's secret technique and released a monstrous demonic chi and black light. It began a massacre in the army camp, wantonly slaughtering 100,000 soldiers. A huge rumbling sound exploded in the night sky and spread across half of Central State City. Various blood-red and purple lights also flashed in the night sky, attracting everyone's attention. The entire army camp was in chaos. In just 20 seconds, more than 40,000 soldiers had lost their lives. The remaining tens of thousands of soldiers were forced to retreat in panic and flee in all directions. The Nightmare Lord still wanted to pursue and kill even more soldiers to create chaos in the city. The Imperial Preceptor dashed forward to stop it without any regard for his own safety. He used all kinds of skills and secret techniques to fight with the Nightmare Lord. The two fought for a while, and the shockwaves from their battle destroyed everything in a radius of 10 miles. Unfortunately, the Imperial Tutor could not do anything to the Nightmare Lord. Instead, his soul was injured by the Nightmare Lord's secret technique and his strength was greatly weakened. 100 seconds later, more than a dozen Heaven Origin Realm Generals and a few Soul Refinement Realm Generals came from all directions to provide reinforcements. Everyone worked together to attack the Nightmare Lord and immediately tied it down, preventing it from causing trouble in the city. Seeing that the situation was bad, the Nightmare Lord stopped fighting and turned to flee into the distance. It was very clear that these people could not do anything to it and would not be able to cause any harm to it. However, its whereabouts had been exposed, so it could not stay here for long. The human sovereign emperor was overseeing the city. If it delayed too long and provoked the sovereign emperor, it would be in danger. Whoosh! The Nightmare Lord controlled the demon god scepter and streaked across the night sky like a streak of light. In the blink of an eye, it had shaken off everyone and burrowed into the depths of the ground. The generals and many Heaven Origin Realm experts did not give up and burrowed into the ground, swearing to capture the Nightmare Lord and the Demon God Scepter. However, the Demon God Scepter was an Origin Soul Realm magic treasure after all. It was just too fast. In just a few seconds, the Demon God Scepter had burrowed 100 miles into the ground and quickly escaped from the vicinity of Central State City. The generals chased to the edge of Central State City, but when they sensed the Demon God Scepter's aura leaving, they could only retreat helplessly. After this ordeal, Central State City was in quite a bit of chaos. More than 600,000 soldiers had been slaughtered by the Nightmare Lord, which infuriated the generals. They wanted nothing more than to kill the Nightmare Lord 10 times over. The Imperial Tutor remained calm and ordered the generals to tighten their defenses. Then, he rushed to the North Gate and threw himself into the battle. Near the North Gate, the battle between the two armies had already reached its peak. Chapter 1430. In order to put pressure on the human defenders and cooperate with the Nightmare's assassination, Demon Commander Dark Knight and the army of the Devil race attacked continuously for 2 hours. The defensive array covering the northern gate was broken through 8 times in succession, each time creating cracks and holes. However, the cracks and holes in the defensive array were quickly repaired. Apart from the nightmare and the demonic fog and poisonous gas, the demon army could not enter Central Continent City through the cracks. Now, the nightmare's actions had been exposed and the plan had failed, escaping from Central Continent City. Demon Commander Dark Knight did not waste any more time and the lives of the demon soldiers, decisively stopping the attack. In a short 100 breaths of time, more than 100,000 undead skeletons and more than 600,000 demon soldiers retreated like a tide, quickly leaving Central Continent City. The shouts and sounds of fighting near the northern gate gradually weakened and dissipated. The morning sun was about to rise and a new day was about to arrive. The first battle between the two armies had also ended. Although this battle was only a probing attack by the demons. But the battle was extremely bitter and the result was also shocking. Outside the northern gate, the moat was covered in countless bones and demon corpses, the river water also turning dark red. On the wasteland, there were piles of white bones and demon corpses all over the ground. At least 400,000 undead skeletons and more than 300,000 demon soldiers were killed in this battle. The human defenders also suffered several tens of thousands of deaths and 100,000 injuries. 5 barracks in Central Continent City were destroyed and more than 600,000 human soldiers were massacred by the nightmare. In comparison, the human losses were even more disastrous. After the battle ended, the soldiers immediately busied themselves, cleaning up the battlefield, reinforcing the defensive array, and rebuilding the barracks. The Imperial Tutor and several commanders hurried to the City Lord's mansion to report the situation to the Emperor. After the Emperor learned of the situation, he thought for a while and then issued several orders to strengthen the defenses of Central Continent City. In particular, those defensive arrays needed to be strengthened to prevent the nightmare from sneaking into the city and causing trouble again. In the Emperor's mansion, the Imperial Palace was still quiet. In the dimly lit secret room, Ji Tianqing was still sitting cross-legged on the frigid ice jade bed, completely focused on cultivating. In another 7 days, the 2-month deadline would be up. At that time, the ancient divine formation in the secret chamber would shut down and lose the effect of time acceleration. Now, Ji Tianqing had already cultivated the 3rd level of the Sword Soul Dao. His martial Dao foundation was even more solid, and his strength had also increased by 2 times. He was still meditating on a lost art, the 5th sword of the Burial of Heaven, the 7 Stars Sword. Before Burial of Heaven entered the 9th Heaven Cauldron, he taught him the 5th sword technique. The power of this sword technique was too strong, and the cultivation requirements were also very high. Only when he reached the Essence Soul Realm would he have a chance of successfully cultivating it. Big Dipper Sword, 1 sword to shatter 7 stars. If Ji Tianqing was strong enough, the 4th sword would be able to cut open the sky and see the starry sky. The 5th sword strike could shatter 7 stars with a single strike. The stars were unreachable, Although they looked small, they were actually another vast and magnificent world. From this, it could be seen how terrifying the might of this Big Dipper sword had attained. It was no exaggeration to say that this was a true god-tier sword art. Only those in the martial god realm could unleash the true power of the sword technique. Ji Tianqing paid no attention to the matters of the outside world. He only cultivated with all his might and did his best to increase his strength. The day he mastered this divine art would be the day he returned to the mountain and took revenge. A day passed quickly. After a day of rest, Central State City temporarily calmed down. Several defensive formations had also been strengthened by the emperors and commanders, and the defenses were even tighter. In the middle of the night, muffled rumbling came from the north of Central State City. This was the sound of thousands of soldiers and horses trampling over the earth. It spread far and wide in the silent night. The human soldiers sensed that something was wrong. Realizing that the demon army was about to launch another attack, they immediately blew the horn to defend. The million soldiers guarding the north of the city were immediately on high alert. The defensive formations were pushed to their limits, forming a dazzling seven-colored barrier that illuminated half of the city. More than 100,000 elite soldiers climbed up the city walls. They lined up in a row with bows and crossbows, and set up all kinds of defensive equipment. The imperial tutor and various commanders hurried to the north gate, personally assuming command. However, 2 hours later, the 3 million-strong demon army had arrived outside Central State City, but they were divided into two groups. The first group was led by Demon Commander Dark Knight, attacking the north gate with all their strength. The other group was led by Nightmare, attacking the east gate with all their strength. Seeing this scene, the imperial tutor promptly made the corresponding arrangements. He sent several commanders to assist the Northern Frontier Divine General and Eastern Woods Divine General Xiaohan. Not long after, the great battle began. The war cries and roars of the million soldiers converged into a deafening sound wave that resounded in the sky above Central State City. The two demon army launched an attack without any regard for anything. This attack was very fierce, and definitely not probing. The demon army seemed to have made up their mind to break through the defenses of Central State City. In front of the demon army were hundreds of thousands of undead skeletons and evil demons, attacking without any regard for their lives. The hundreds of thousands of demon army soldiers formed a battle formation. Using the combined battle formation, they released attacks comparable to primordial spirit powerhouses, constantly bombarding Central State City's defensive formations. The demon army even used more than 2,000 fierce demon beasts. These demon beasts were of different species and had different appearances, but they were all as large as mountains, possessing immense strength and terrifying destructive power. They angrily roared and released powerful killing moves, fiercely attacking the two city gates. The human army was under great pressure. Soon, the few defensive magic formations were broken. Cracks and holes appeared on the defensive magic formations. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the blood god children who had been waiting for a long time hurriedly released poison, plagues, blood water, demon chi, and other powers, pouring them into Central State City. They also created super earthquakes and floods, and even urged the surging magma of the Earth's core to pour into Central State City. Outside the North Gate and East Gate, the scene of the great battle was extremely intense, the scene incredibly chaotic. Large numbers of casualties quickly appeared among the human soldiers. There were constantly people who died or were heavily injured and lost the ability to fight. The human army garrisoned in the city continuously reinforced the two battlefields, filling in the gaps in their numbers. The great battle continued for an entire 2 hours. The demon army's attacks were still fierce, without any intention of retreating. The imperial tutor and the commanders all realized that the demon army's attack tonight was probably not that simple. They definitely had some sort of scheme or backup plan. Just as everyone gathered together and discussed this matter with grave expressions, a monstrous bloody light flew over from the northern night sky. Muffled rumbling noises could be heard coming from the mountains and wastelands in the distance. Chapter 1431. In the blink of an eye, that huge dark red light flew to the northern city gate. The blood light stopped 10 miles away from the city and quickly condensed into a tall and burly figure. This person was more than 10 feet tall and had 2 heads. He wore a purple robe and was covered in black dragon scales. He exuded a powerful and domineering aura. He was the ancient demon emperor. Behind him stood a few blood god sons in the soul refinement realm. Demon General Dark Knight hurried to welcome the demon emperor. After bowing respectfully, he followed the demon emperor's instructions and ordered the demon army to stop attacking. 15 minutes later, the demon army left behind more than 200,000 corpses and retreated hundreds of miles away to rest in the wilderness. The imperial tutor and the commander's expressions changed when they saw the ancient demon emperor arrive. Their eyes were very serious. The imperial guards guarding the city gate hurriedly rushed to the city lord's residence to report the news to the emperor. As time passed, the rumbling sounds got closer and closer. The imperial preceptor and the various commanders looked to the north and very quickly saw that under the curtain of night, there were several demon armies galloping towards them as fast as the wind. Looking around, there were demon army soldiers in all directions. It was as boundless as a black sea. The imperial preceptor roughly estimated that there were at least 5 million demon soldiers in the army that the devil emperor brought with him. The demon army had occupied the area of 1,000 miles outside Zhongzhou city. When the devil army reached 100 li away from the city, they stopped one after another and got into an offensive formation. The biting cold north wind blew over, bringing with it a boundless chill of death. The arrival of millions of demon army caused demon chi to fill the sky outside Zhongzhou city. The area of a few thousand miles was covered by black clouds. An invisible suppressive force coiled around the hearts of the human soldiers, causing them to feel immense pressure. Their hearts felt heavy. The imperial tutor, Yun Zhongqi, and the others looked at the demon emperor and demon general Dark Knight outside the city. They murmured with grave expressions, "Is the final battle about to begin?" The demon emperor has always been sinister and cunning. The demon race's attacks are extremely fast. The demon emperor is leading an army to attack. I'm afraid it's going to be a battle to the death tonight. Soon, a golden light lit up in the sky above Zhongzhou city and flew over as fast as lightning. Shwa! After a few breaths, the golden light landed on the wall of the northern city gate and stood in front of the imperial tutor and the commanders. The person who had come was the imperial emperor. He was dressed in golden dragon-patterned armor and a dark golden cloak. The human sovereign's sword hung at his waist, making him look sacred and dignified. Judging from the emperor's attire, it was obvious that he was going to personally lead the army and participate in the battle. Clearly, he also thought that the demon emperor was personally leading the attack to start a decisive battle. The demon emperor stood proudly on the city wall and stared at the demon emperor with burning eyes. Ever since the demon emperor arrived outside the city, he had been waiting silently. At this moment, as the emperor showed up, he said in a deep and cold voice, "Long Xuankuan, from the moment the Heaven Dragon Mountain Pass was broken, the human race was doomed. Now that things have reached this point, you can only hole up in Central State City, yet you still want to stubbornly resist. You are truly stubborn. You know very well that not only the human race, the Water Clan and the Demon Clan are also destined to be defeated. In the end, this profound sky continent will belong to the Demon Clan. Meaningless resistance will only lead to more sacrifices. More innocent human beings will die miserably because of your stubborn resistance." The demon emperor's voice contained soul-suppressing power. Like rolling thunder, it resounded in the night sky and spread across the entire Central State City. The invisible soul-suppressing power quietly bewitched the rationality of the human warriors and civilians, stirring up their emotions. The imperial emperor immediately saw through the demon emperor's scheme and revealed a disdainful sneer. "Demon emperor, you are a great demon who has lived for thousands of years, the emperor of the demon clan of the northern desert. You have always been treacherous and cunning. I didn't expect that you would use such low-level instigation tricks. How laughable." The imperial emperor shouted coldly with disdain. His majestic voice spread across the entire Central State City. His voice also contained invisible soul-suppressing power that could calm the minds of the warriors and civilians, keeping them calm and rational. The imperial emperor pressed the hilt of the human sovereign's sword with his left hand and pointed at the human warriors on the city wall with his right hand. He said with a vigorous voice, "Demon Emperor, no matter how you try to bewitch people, you will never be able to shake the will of our warriors and civilians. We humans have a blood feud with the demon clan. We are like fire and water, and we will fight to the death. No matter what you say, we human warriors will unite and fight to the death. We will shed our last drop of blood to kill the demon clan." As the imperial emperor's voice faded away, the million warriors in the northern city area all let out a vigorous roar that shook the heavens. "Fight the demon clan to the death!" The million warriors shouted at the same time. Their imposing manner was magnificent and stirring. The horrifying sound waves shook the sky and spread for thousands of miles, shaking the earth. The demon emperor revealed a vicious sneer and said with a mocking tone, "Long Xuankuan, since you human warriors are so united and want to fight to the end, I will give you a great gift. At the same time, I also want to see if you are a virtuous and wise human imperial emperor, or a hypocritical and heartless hypocrite." As his voice faded away, the demon emperor waved his right hand and shot out a blood-red light that covered the sky. The blood-red light was like a flood that poured down from the night sky onto the ground and immediately spread out. After the blood-red light landed on the ground, it quickly dissipated, and one figure after another appeared. There were countless humans, men and women, old and young. Most of them were old and weak. Judging from their attire, they were obviously the people of the Central Plains. Almost all of them were covered in wounds and blood, and their spirits were weak and frightened. They huddled together in fear, crying and moaning in pain from time to time. As the blood-red light continued to pour down, more and more humans appeared on the ground. They huddled together like ants, forming a dark mass. After 100 breaths of time, the demon emperor retracted his right arm, and the blood-red light stopped pouring down. On the blood-soaked ground, hundreds of thousands of pitiful and weak humans appeared. They huddled together in a chaotic mess, and their cries were heart-wrenching. Obviously, the demon emperor had used the secret technique of the heaven and earth sleeve to store the hundreds of thousands of humans in his sleeve. Outside the Central Plains city, in front of the two armies, he released these humans at the critical moment. There were more than 300,000 humans piled up on the barren land. At first, they were filled with fear. Seeing the demon clan army around them, they knew that they could not escape or live, and they all cried in despair. After a while, some people saw the Central Plains city not far away, and they all cried out in joy and excitement. Instantly, countless humans were awakened and looked up at the north gate. Chapter 1432. The emperor and the imperial tutors' faces darkened when they saw the demon king release hundreds of thousands of civilians. They didn't need to guess to know that this was the demon king's great gift. Without a doubt, this was not a great gift. This was a cruel and ruthless scheme. Sure enough, the demon emperor looked down at the hundreds of thousands of human beings under his feet, curled his lips into a mocking sneer, and said loudly, "Worms, do you see this? That is Zhongzhou City. Those standing on the city wall are your imperial tutor and the emperor, as well as the soldiers who protect the human race." The 300,000 civilians all looked up at the north gate and the soldiers on the city wall. Everyone's heart was filled with a strong desire to survive. However, they were surrounded by the demon army and could not escape. They would be killed if they tried anything funny. Their only hope of survival was in the hands of the soldiers who were guarding the city. The demon king sneered and said to the civilians in a bewitching voice, "Do you want to live? If you want to live, beg your emperor to send an army to save you." As his voice fell, the citizens were instantly energized, shouting and crying for help at the top of their lungs. "Your Majesty! Save us! We don't want to die. Please save us! Your Majesty, kill the demon king and kill all these demons." The cries of the hundreds of thousands of civilians gathered into a deafening sound wave that crashed into Zhongzhou City. The human soldiers near the North City gate all looked anxious and worried. Their expressions became complicated. Seeing their human compatriots covered in wounds, pain, and helplessness, everyone couldn't bear to see them suffer in such a miserable and hopeless manner. Almost every normal person would feel pity for them and want to step forward to save the people from the hands of the demon race. However, the soldiers suppressed these thoughts in their hearts. They remembered the military order and would not make a fuss. They would not act on their own. The demon emperor looked at the demon emperor with a cold smile and said in a mocking tone, "Long Xuankuan, these insects are your people. They are all waiting for you to save their lives. As an imperial emperor of the human race, you once swore to the world and your ancestors that you would use your life to protect the people and territories of the human race. If you don't want to see these worms being massacred by this emperor, then hurry up and send an army to rescue them. Of course, I have long seen that you are a heartless, hypocritical, and despicable tyrant. You would definitely leave him in the lurch, right? Ha 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 ha." With that, the demon emperor placed his hands behind his back and laughed maniacally. The millions of demon soldiers in the wilderness also let out ear-piercing jeers. When the emperor, the imperial tutor, and the other commanders saw this scene, their faces became more and more unsightly. Flames of anger flickered in their eyes. The soldiers guarding the city were also furious. They stared at the demon emperor with murderous eyes. Above and below the city walls, countless soldiers were cursing angrily and discussing among themselves. In front of almost 10 million people, the devilish emperor cursed the emperor as a heartless, hypocritical, and despicable tyrant. The human soldiers naturally didn't believe this nonsense. No matter how the devilish emperor slandered the emperor, he couldn't destroy the emperor's image in their hearts. However, more than 300,000 people were suffering outside the city. Could the emperor watch as the commoners were killed without doing anything? To save them or not to save them, this was a problem that gave him a headache. The emperor, the imperial tutor, and the human commanders all knew that these 300,000 people had been abducted by the demon army after they killed their way into Central Plains. The demon emperor had deliberately used these people as hostages to put on a good show outside Central Plains. He wanted to attack the hearts of the human soldiers. The people were innocent and helpless, miserable and in pain. They could die at any moment under the demon's blade. The emperor and the commanders couldn't bear to see this and wanted to save the people. However, they knew that this was the demon emperor's scheme. If the emperor sent out an army to fight the demons and save the people, the human army would definitely be surrounded by countless human soldiers. The human soldiers who went out of the city to fight were bound to be besieged by millions of demons. In the end, they would be completely annihilated and would not be able to save the civilians. If the emperor insisted on not sending reinforcements, everyone could only watch as the 300,000 people were slaughtered by the demons. This would undoubtedly prove that the emperor was a heartless hypocrite. It would deal a heavy blow to the morale of the human soldiers. In short, whether he saved the people or not, the emperor was in a bad position. The imperial tutor and the commanders angrily cursed the demon emperor for being despicable and shameless. They also tried to persuade the people outside the city, explaining the pros and cons of the situation to them. Everyone, don't listen to the demon emperor. He is the cruelest and most cold-blooded demon. This is the demon race's scheme. They want to break our morale and force us to fight outside the city. My people, please believe in the imperial court, and please believe in the soldiers of my race. We will always exist to protect the people of the human race. But tonight, we might have to disappoint everyone. Please understand. In order to protect Central State City, and to protect the millions of people in the world, we cannot open the city to fight. The 300,000 people were originally filled with hope for survival, fantasizing about a miracle. They shouted loudly and begged humbly. However, after hearing the words of the imperial tutor and the commanders, the people felt as if a basin of cold water had been poured over their heads. Their bodies immediately turned cold, and they looked as if they had lost their souls. Countless people were in despair. They cried bitterly, kneeling on the ground and begging. Some people went crazy in despair. They laughed crazily and cursed angrily. Some cursed the demons for being despicable and cruel. Some cursed the emperor and the imperial court for being hypocritical and not saving them. Under the threat of death, many people lost their minds and spoke without thinking. However, when the city guards saw this scene, they couldn't get angry at all, and they couldn't blame the people. Everyone's mood became more and more uncomfortable. It was as if a large stone was pressing down on their hearts. They were so angry that they almost couldn't breathe. Soon, 20 breaths of time passed. Seeing that the emperor still hadn't made a decision, the demon emperor waved his sleeve and ordered Demon Commander Dark Knight. Kill. Demon Commander Dark Knight gave the order. Immediately, over 10,000 demon soldiers charged at the people of the human race with swords and sabers. At least 10,000 people were lifted up by the demon soldiers. They waved their swords and sabers, and their necks were cut off. The sound of bones breaking, the sound of corpses falling to the ground, the wails of the dying people, and the terrified screams. All kinds of sounds gathered together and resounded through the night sky. In the blink of an eye, over 10,000 people were slaughtered. Corpses and blood flowed all over the ground. The biting cold northern wind, carrying a thick smell of blood, blew on the walls of Central State City. Countless human soldiers were so angry that their eyes turned red. Their bodies surged with killing intent. Chapter 1433. The Demon King had ordered the slaughter of tens of thousands of civilians in front of the emperor and countless human soldiers. This was a huge blow to the human soldiers and infuriated everyone. No one could endure such humiliation. Any soldier with a bit of courage wanted to go out of the city and fight the demon race. However, this was the situation that the emperor, the imperial tutor, and the various commanders did not want to see the most. If the emperor really opened the city gates and sent his army out to fight, the human soldiers would definitely suffer heavy casualties. The Demon King might even take this opportunity to break into Zhongzhou City and start a massacre. Once Zhongzhou City fell, the human race would be completely finished. There was nothing that could be done. The emperor's expression was extremely cold. He stared at the Demon King with a sharp gaze, his eyes almost shooting out tangible sword light. Ancient Demon King. You don't deserve to be called an ancient demon, nor do you deserve to be called a supreme expert. How dare you use such a despicable and shameless trick? The Demon King stared at the emperor and sneered contemptuously. I am the Demon King, the emperor of the demon race. Of course I am cold-blooded and heartless. I will do anything to achieve my goals. Don't tell me you want to talk about morality and morality with a great devil? Ha 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 ha. The Demon King laughed maniacally and waved his sleeves again. Kill again. On the ground, the tens of thousands of demon race soldiers grabbed tens of thousands of civilians and slashed them down. PFFF PFFF PFFF. Heads were chopped off one after another, splattering blood as they rolled on the ground. More than 300,000 civilians were scared out of their wits by this bloody and cruel scene. They screamed and wailed at the top of their lungs. There were even many commoners who lost their minds and rushed out of the crowd without any regard for their own safety, desperately rushing towards the North City Gate. However, as soon as they charged out of the crowd, they were chopped into minced meat by countless flashing blades. Blood splattered all over the ground. What a scene of purgatory on earth. This scene was even more cruel and inhumane than a battle between two armies. The human officers and soldiers on the city wall were all trembling with anger, their teeth clenched so hard that creaking sounds could be heard. Many of the generals could not suppress the emotions of the soldiers and had no choice but to ask their commanders for orders to fight. Undoubtedly, the plot of Versatile Demon Emperor played a great role as it greatly stimulated the human generals and soldiers. The emperor saw that the situation was a little agitated. If he did not think of a way to suppress it, he was afraid that the soldiers would lose control of their emotions. Thus, he stepped into the night sky against the wind and stood proudly above the city gate. He didn't pay attention to the Demon Emperor. His expression was heavy as he looked at the civilians outside the city. With a solemn and respectful voice, he said, "My people, for Central Continent City, and for all of humanity, this emperor cannot send troops to save you. However, I, the imperial tutor, the emperor, and all the soldiers of the human race are here to send you off. This emperor will forever remember your sacrifice and this blood feud. This emperor swears to the heavens in the name of my ancestors that I will do everything in my power to avenge all the innocent people who died. Fight the demons to the death. The emperor's dignified and solemn voice resounded clearly throughout the entire area. With that, he bowed deeply to the 300,000 people outside the city. More than 300,000 civilians fell silent. Everyone looked at him in despair. They no longer roared or roared. Instead, they became abnormally quiet and silent. Only tears kept flowing out of their eyes. Above and below the city wall, the million human generals and soldiers all looked at the civilians outside the city with solemn and respectful expressions. At this moment, the eyes of many unyielding men and heroes turned red as tears silently flowed down their cheeks. Everyone remembered this scene. Their hearts were filled with murderous intent. They swore to kill all the demons in the world. In the night sky outside the city, the versatile demon emperor saw the solemn and sorrowful expressions of the human race and laughed loudly again. Ha 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 ha. Human worms, do you see? This is the emperor you worship like a god. What bullshit emperor. This is a complete bastard, a cowardly and useless hypocrite. You still want to work for him? This is ridiculous and shameful. The versatile demon emperor cursed arrogantly and domineeringly, degrading the emperor as if he was worthless. However, the million soldiers and soldiers guarding the city didn't talk, nor did they look at the emperor. Everyone glared at the versatile demon emperor. They wanted nothing more than to kill him with their gazes. The emperor also suppressed his anger and murderous intent. His voice was like a bell as he shouted, "All soldiers prepare for battle. Defend Central State City at all costs." His loud voice spread through half the city. The million soldiers all gripped their weapons and defended with all their might. The versatile demon emperor saw that his scheme had failed. He didn't want to waste any more time. The 300,000 civilians in the wasteland had lost their value. Therefore, he waved his sleeve and sent out a bloody light that covered the sky. It poured down like a tide. Whoosh! The bloody light drowned the 300,000 civilians. Everyone was immediately corroded into skeletons. Boundless blood chi and soul essences converged into a blood cloud that soared into the sky and floated in the night sky. The dozen or so soul refinement realm blood gods hurriedly devoured the bloody cloud to quickly increase their strength. The versatile demon emperor regained his cold and dignified attitude. He ordered, "All soldiers, attack the northern city gate with all your might. Tonight, we will break through Central State City. The first one to kill his way into Central State City will be conferred the title of Demon Commander by this emperor. He will be rewarded with 100 years of cultivation." His majestic and mighty voice spread across hundreds of kilometers of heaven and earth. Millions of demon soldiers were stimulated by these words. Their blood surged, and their fighting spirit and killing intent soared to the sky. Kill. All soldiers, move out. Kill all the humans. We will break through Central State City. At least 3 million demon soldiers were the first to attack. Their roars and battle cries resounded through the sky. When the millions of soldiers charged, the earth rumbled as they stepped on it. It was like thunder. The demon army was like a boundless black tide, madly charging at the northern city gate. The final battle that would decide the fate of the human race was about to begin. Tonight was bound to be a night of slaughter with corpses and rivers of blood. But at this time, in the distant northern night sky, golden light, flames, and the dazzling light of magic techniques suddenly lit up the sky. A series of heavy explosions, the sounds of secret techniques colliding, came from 10,000 li away. The sudden upheaval stunned the versatile demon emperor, demon commander Dark Knight, the emperor, and the imperial tutor. All the experts subconsciously looked at the northern night sky with puzzled expressions. They saw that in the night sky 10,000 li away, the light and shadows of magic techniques were colliding. Dazzling light blossomed, illuminating the night sky like it was daytime. It was clear that a large number of experts were fighting in that area. The versatile Demon Emperor, Demon Commander Dark Knight, and the others trembled, their expressions changing. It's our main camp. Damn it. Someone actually attacked our main camp? Bastard. Who would attack at this time? On the city wall, the Emperor and the Imperial Tutor looked at each other and smiled, as if relieved of a heavy burden. Chapter 1434. To the north of Zhongzhou City, the demon race's camp thousands of miles away was shrouded in a colorful light. Rays of Dharma spells bloomed and lit up the dark night sky. Muffled sounds of collisions and explosions could be heard from the night sky. Although no one could hear the battle cries and didn't know who was fighting, the demon race and the demon race knew that the demon race and the demon race had a clear understanding of who was fighting. However, the Devil Emperor, Demon Commander Dark Knight, and the others all understood that the Devil race's camp must have been attacked, and the attackers' attacks were very fierce. Only the Emperor and the Imperial Tutor could guess the identity of the attacker. Demon Commander Dark Knight thought for a while and immediately flew to the front of the ancient Demon Emperor. Your Majesty, our camp is under attack. Please stay here and I am willing to lead the troops back to help. The ancient Demon Emperor looked at the mighty demon race army and saw countless demon race soldiers crazily attacking the North City Gate. He frowned and thought for a while. After a while, he ordered in a dignified tone, "No need. Order all troops to stop attacking and return to our camp immediately. This must be Long Xuanquan's plan. If I am not wrong, the ones attacking our camp are most likely the demon race and the water race's army. After all, we are attacking Zhongzhou City with all our strength and have already suspended the plan to attack the demon race and the water race. Long Xuanquan is unwilling to admit defeat and will definitely try to resist. Of course, he will ask the water race and the demon race for reinforcements." After hearing the ancient Demon Emperor's words, Demon Commander Dark Knight didn't refute. He nodded silently and cupped his hands. Then, Demon Commander Dark Knight passed down the order and ordered all the demon race soldiers to stop attacking. The demon race soldiers were well trained and treated the Demon Emperor like a god. Their efficiency in carrying out orders was also very high. In just a short 15 minutes, the demon race army of more than 3 million retreated like the tide. Outside the North City Gate, there were only white bones and hundreds of thousands of broken bones left on the ground. Not long after, the demon race army of millions left Zhongzhou City under the leadership of the ancient Demon Emperor and rushed back to the demon race's camp. This tragic battle came to an abrupt end at this point. The millions of soldiers who were guarding the city heaved a sigh of relief as they watched the demon race army leave quickly. The Emperor, the Imperial Tutor, and several commanders stood side by side on the city wall. They looked at the night sky in the north with worried expressions. The Demon Emperor is indeed calm. To think that he would make a prompt decision to retreat and return to the main camp. What a pity. If the Devil Emperor were here, we would be able to hold on for a few more days. Take advantage of this opportunity to attack the reinforcements of the demon race's camp. We will definitely achieve glorious results. Not only that, if Demon Emperor didn't retreat in time, our reinforcements would probably break through the demon camp and bring a heavy loss to the demon camp. Everyone whispered to each other, feeling pity for this. By now, the commanders had already guessed the identity of the reinforcements. At such a critical moment, who else could send reinforcements to the Central Plains other than the Monster Clan and the Water Clan? The Imperial Tutor hurriedly took out a communication jade slip and quickly sent out the news that the demon army had retreated and the Demon Emperor had returned to defend the demon camp. He believed that the Demon Emperor and Golden Dragon Emperor would know what to do after receiving the message. Time passed quickly, and an hour quickly passed. North of the Central Plains city, in the demon race's camp thousands of miles away, the monstrous magic light gradually dimmed and dissipated. By the time the Demon Emperor led the army back to the camp, the battle had already ended and the attackers had already retreated. The demon race's camp, which was hundreds of miles in radius, was only left with pits and huge cracks, as well as corpses that covered the ground. Most of the corpses belonged to the demon race's soldiers, numbering more than 500,000. However, a quarter of the corpses belonged to the Water Clan and the Monster Clan. Their racial characteristics were very obvious. Demon Commander Dark Knight checked the situation of the camp. After investigating the results, he quickly reported it to the Demon Emperor. The Demon Emperor was sitting in the Demon Palace. After hearing Demon Commander Dark Knight's report, he immediately frowned. Sure enough, it's the Monster Clan and the Water Clan. These damned bastards, after this Emperor has dealt with the humans, I will take care of them. Dark Knight, pass down the order. The entire army will rest for 3 days and conserve energy. In addition, strengthen the defense of our camp. We can't let the Water Clan and the Monster Clan have another chance to launch a sneak attack. Demon Commander Dark Knight bowed and said yes, then turned and left the Demon Palace. In the next 2 days, Central Continent City was calm and peaceful. The demon race's army seemed to have learned their lesson. They no longer rashly sent troops to attack Central Continent City. They had been holed up in the demon race's camp to recuperate. In Central Continent City, the human soldiers also took the opportunity to rest and recuperate. They repaired the city walls and the buildings in the city, strengthening their defenses. On the evening of the second day, 2 esteemed guests from afar entered Central Continent City. The Imperial Tutor led a large group of Imperial Guards to personally welcome the 2 esteemed guests, and led them into the City Lord's mansion. In the guest hall, the Emperor sat at the head, and the Imperial Tutor stood at the side. On the left side of the head was a tall middle-aged man. He wore a long robe with golden scales, and a golden crown on his head. His face and expression were very dignified. This person was the leader of the Monster Clan of the West Wilderness, the Heavenly Net Monster Emperor. On the right side of the head was a tall and sturdy Water Clan man. This person wore a golden robe with a flying phoenix dragon pattern, and a luxurious 9-star crown on his head. His square face was upright and dignified, and there was a golden dragon horn on his forehead. He was the leader of the East Seas Water Clan, the famous Golden Dragon Emperor. Obviously, the 3 supreme beings of the 3 races had met here to form an alliance. In addition to the Heavenly Net Demon Emperor and the Golden Dragon Emperor, there were also a few human commanders in the hall. They were Long Yun Xiao, Yun Zhongqi, and Bailey Divine Doctor. After everyone greeted each other, they exchanged a few pleasantries and began to talk about business. The Emperor stood up with a solemn expression, and bowed to the Heavenly Net Demon Emperor and the Golden Dragon Emperor. He said in a sincere tone, Demon Emperor, Dragon Emperor, thank you for coming to our aid at the critical moment. You attacked the demon race's camp directly, and resolved the crisis of Central Continent City. You also solved this Emperor's urgent situation. The Heavenly Net Demon Emperor and the Golden Dragon Emperor nodded slightly, revealing a faint smile. As early as 2 months ago, Your Majesty sent a message asking for our support. We came too late, Your Majesty, please forgive us. As the saying goes, it is better to come at the right time than to come early. We led the army overnight and just happened to see the Demon Emperor attacking Central Continent City. We suddenly had the idea to take the risk and attack the demon race's camp. Emperor may laugh at us, but before we launched the attack, we didn't have much confidence. That's right. After all, we came a long way, and only brought 3 million soldiers. We didn't dare to fight the demon race's army of 10 million. We didn't expect that the Demon Emperor would lead the elite forces to attack Central Continent City, and the demon race's camp was defenseless. That was why we had the opportunity. The Emperor cupped his hands and bowed to the 2, and said with a gratified smile, This Emperor is already very grateful for the 2 of you coming to our aid at the critical moment. The Water Clan and the demon race's army of several million had traveled for 2 months to reach Central Continent City. They must be tired and slack off. Chapter 1435. The Celestial Emperor had good intentions. Outside of Central State City, other than the wasteland, there were only mountains, so there was a lack of food and fodder. Of course, the millions of spirit creatures and waterkind warriors were not suitable to be stationed outside the city. Only by entering Central Continent City would the two clans' armies be able to rest and reorganize in peace, conserving their strength. However, the Heavenly Net Demon Emperor and the Golden Dragon Emperor both waved their hands and refused. "Thank you for your kind intentions, Emperor, but I can only accept it. Monarch, once our soldiers enter Central Continent City, they will be able to prepare for war and recuperate. But if that's the case, apart from increasing the number of soldiers in our army, there's no point in us coming to the Central Province." When the Demon Emperor and Golden Dragon Emperor refused, the Emperor immediately guessed their intentions, and a meaningful smile appeared on his face. "The two of you are unwilling to lead the army into the city. There must be other reasons and plans, right? If I'm not wrong, you want to be stationed outside the city and pin down the Devil Army?" The Demon Emperor and Golden Dragon Emperor both nodded in unison upon hearing this. "That's right, the Celestial Emperor is indeed wise. If our army enters Central State City, the armies of the three clans will all be concentrated in the city, and the demon race will be able to attack Central State City with all their strength. As long as Central State City is breached, the demon clan will obtain a complete victory. They will definitely be able to dominate the Central State, and no one will be able to stop them. The armies of our two races will set up camps 1,500 kilometers to the left and right of the Devil race's main camp. This way, we will be able to contain and attack the Devil race from both sides. Once the demon race attacks Central State City, we will attack the demon race's main camp with all our strength, forcing the Demon Emperor to retreat." Hearing the Monster Emperor and Golden Dragon Emperor's words, the Emperor smiled and nodded. "The two of you have thought it through thoroughly. This is indeed a good plan. It will definitely restrain the demon race, preventing them from attacking Central Continent City with all their strength." The demons were far away from the northern desert. They had to end the battle quickly and not drag it out for too long. As long as we can hold on for 3 to 5 months, the demon army's offensive will naturally collapse. However, I am a little worried. If the demon army attacks the camps of the Water Clan or the Monster Clan, how do you two deal with it? The Demon Emperor and Golden Dragon Emperor had already reached a consensus, and after exchanging a smile with one another, they said in unison, "Our Emperor, only then will we be able to oppose the devilish army. As long as the demons attack one of our sides, the other two sides will send their armies to attack the demon camp or attack the demon army in a pincer attack. This will solve all the problems." The decisive battle in Central State City was not only related to the fate of the human race, but also related to the fate of the monster race and the water race. The human race was only the devil race's first target. Once the demon clan defeated the human clan and occupied the central continent, the next step would be to exterminate the water clan and the monster clan. The relationship between our three clans is one of mutual dependence. No one can stay out of this. The Demon Emperor and Golden Dragon Emperor nodded in agreement. He slowly stood up. His eyes sparkled as he said in a low and solemn tone, "What a good, without the lips, the teeth will be cold." Well said. That was right. The Devil Clan was full of ambition. They wanted to dominate the Tianxian land and enslave all the races in the world. This was a war that concerned the fate of the entire continent. No one could stay out of it. We must work together and unite as one in order to overcome this crisis and repel the demons. The Demon Emperor and Golden Dragon Emperor also hurriedly rose to their feet before cupping their fists in salute. Let's fight the devilish army to the death. The 3 Heaven Supremes had reached a consensus, their wills as strong as an impregnable fortress. Next, the three of them had a long secret discussion about their next move. Late at night, the Demon Emperor and Golden Dragon Emperor bid farewell and returned to their respective camps. Very quickly, 5 days had passed. On the morning of the 6th day, at the first glimmer of dawn, the great army of the Demon Clan launched their attack again. After 5 days of rest, the great army of the Demon Clan had rested and nurtured their strength. Their morale was even higher and their attacks were even more ferocious. Moreover, the Demon Emperor seemed to have guessed the strategy and plan of the three clans. He knew that the three clans would work together to restrain the Demon Clan and stall for time. Therefore, the great army of the demon clan had chosen to split into two groups. The first group was led by the demon emperor himself. A total of 3 million soldiers attacked Central State City with all their strength. The second group was led by Demon General Mingyi. A total of 3 million soldiers attacked the camp of the Water Clan with all their strength. The Golden Dragon Emperor had only brought 3,300,000 Water Clan soldiers to the Central State. They were stationed 3,000 miles east of the Demon Clan's camp, in a towering mountain range. Even though those 3 million Water Race soldiers were all elites, they were still able to fight back. The Water Clan had always lived in the Eastern Sea and rarely moved on land. The 3 million Water Clan soldiers' fighting strength on land would be reduced, and many aspects would be affected and restricted. It was probably for this reason that the Demon Emperor decided to attack the Water Clan's camp. After the great army of the Demon Clan set out, the situation became very clear. 3 million soldiers attacking Central State City, 3 million attacking the Water Clan's camp, and 10 million guarding the Demon Clan's camp. To the Human Clan, the Yao Clan, and the Water Clan, this was an extremely troublesome problem. The Demon Emperor's decision was not a conspiracy, but a completely overt one. The Demon Clan held the advantage of having a large number of soldiers. They were definitely not afraid of fighting head-on. However, the soldiers of the three clans were unable to fight the Demon Clan head-on. When the sun rose, the great battle immediately began. Demon General Mingyi led the 3 million soldiers and took the lead in attacking the Water Clan's camp. Not long after, the 3 million soldiers led by the Demon Emperor also killed their way to Central State City and attacked the northern city gate with all their strength. The Emperor, the Imperial Tutor, and the various commanders all rushed to the northern city gate and personally supervised the battle. Not long after the great battle began, the Water Clan's camp sent a message asking for reinforcements from the Yao Clan and the Human Clan. The Human Clan soldiers of Central State City could not go out of the city to fight, so they naturally could not help the Water Clan. After the Heavenly Net Demon Emperor received the message, he immediately led the 1 million soldiers to the Water Clan's camp. However, the Demon Emperor had already guessed this and made arrangements in advance. The 1 million Demon Clan soldiers charged out to intercept the Yao Clan's army. In this way, the Demon Clan's army split into 3 groups and attacked the camps of the 3 clans. The 3 clans' armies could barely fend for themselves and could not help each other. Understanding the situation, the Emperor, Heavenly Net Demon Emperor, and Golden Dragon Emperor were both furious and helpless. Unknowingly, 4 hours passed and it was almost noon. The Demon Clan army led by the Heavenly Net Demon Emperor was fighting fiercely with the 1 million Demon Clan soldiers in a majestic mountain range. Although the Demon Clan army fought bravely and wanted to break through the obstruction of the Demon Clan army and go to the Water Clan's camp, the Demon Clan army did not stop. But the Devil Race army stopped them regardless of everything. Millions of Devil Race soldiers rushed forward without regard for their own safety, firmly blocking the Yao Race army in the mountains. The two sides fought for 4 hours. The sky was dark and the earth was dark. Corpses were strewn all over the mountains. Blood dyed the mountains red and gathered at the foot of the mountains to form a red river of blood that surged. Chapter 1436. The Million Mo army was determined to die, even if they had to perish together with the Yao army. They would not allow them to reinforce the Water Race camp. If this continued, both armies would be wiped out, or even completely wiped out. Heavenly Net Yao Emperor's heart was burning with worry. He tried to think of ways to break out, but they all ended in failure. He charged forward to kill the enemy without any regard for his own safety, but he was held back by several Mo experts. There was also the 300,000 Mo army. They formed an ancient Mo battle formation and attacked him together. Even though he had the strength of the primordial spirit realm, he was surrounded and could not change the situation. Outside the north gate of Central Continent City, the 3 million Mo army was attacking with all their might. Deafening battle cries, collisions, and explosions converged into a torrent of sound waves that spread across the land for thousands of miles. On the plains outside the city, the corpses of hundreds of thousands of Mo soldiers were piled up into a small mountain of blood. Dark red or purple Mo blood soaked the plains into a swamp. The ground was covered in blood-colored mud. The moat under the city gate was also blocked by a mountain of corpses. The Red River water surged out and flowed freely on the plains. The Mo army suffered heavy casualties, but their attacks were even more ferocious. Countless Mo soldiers were in a killing frenzy. They did not care about the cost to break through the city. The human soldiers guarding the city also suffered heavy casualties. There were countless soldiers dying at every moment. The human soldiers stationed in the city could only continue to reinforce. They relied on the defensive formation and the city walls to resist to the death. The Yao and humans were unable to reinforce the water race camp. The situation of the water race camp became worse and worse. A few days ago, the water race soldiers came here and built a large army camp in the mountains. They could not move on land, their strength was greatly reduced. Also, they had only been stationed for a short period of time. They could only set up some basic defensive measures. They could not make the camp impenetrable. Facing the 3 million Mo army, the water race soldiers resisted to the death. Although the battle had already been going on for more than 4 hours, the water race camp had not been broken through. But the water race soldiers had suffered heavy casualties. More than 700,000 soldiers had sacrificed their lives. The defensive formation of the camp was constantly being torn apart, with holes appearing one after another. Countless devil race soldiers poured into the devil race's camp through the gap like a tide. The warriors of the water race fought bravely against the enemies and mended the gaps in the formation. They were barely holding on. If the war went on like this, the Waterkind camp would be broken in 4 to 6 hours at most. By then, the Waterkind camp would be destroyed, and the 3 million Waterkind warriors would be crushed as well. Once the army of the Water clan was destroyed, only the Monster clan and the Human clan were left. They would not be able to hold on for long and would eventually be destroyed. In short, in the current war situation, a slight move could affect the entire situation. The Nephilim Emperor was cunning enough to analyze the situation thoroughly. His first move was to kill, which was why he was in such an unsolvable situation. The Celestial Emperor, the Heavenly Net Demon Emperor, and the Golden Dragon Emperor were all at their wits' end. It seemed that the situation was about to develop according to the Demon Emperor's plan. The plan of the alliance between the 3 races would soon be dismantled by the Devil race. It was at this moment that the palace in the depths of the monarch's residence suddenly lit up with golden light. A 10,000 feet tall golden light phantom appeared in the sky above the imperial palace, illuminating thousands of miles of land. The few god-tier masters and crown princes who stayed in the imperial palace were awakened by this earth-shattering phenomenon. They looked up at the sky and exclaimed, "It's Ji Tianqing. What kind of godly technique did he cultivate? Such an earth-shattering phenomenon, illuminating thousands of miles of land. It must be a peerless godly technique. This is great. Ji Tianqing has come out of seclusion at the right time. The army of the devil race has split into 3 and is attacking the camps of the 3 races crazily. The situation is very critical. If Ji Tianqing were to make a move now, he might be able to turn the situation around. Ji Tianqing has already surpassed all the god-tier masters and is in primordial soul supreme who is on par with the Celestial Emperor. He is standing at the pinnacle of the continent. With his strength and means, he will definitely be able to resolve this crisis." Just as the god-tier masters and crown princes were discussing, a different scene was happening in the secret chamber of the imperial palace. Huff! Ji Tianqing exhaled a long breath of turbid air and slowly retracted his hands that were forming hand seals, ending 20 months of bitter cultivation. These 20 months were not the longest time he had been in seclusion, but it was the time he had gained the most and his strength had improved the most. After all, the palace master, Emperor Yi, and the other 3 had imparted their lifetime's worth of skills to him. His strength had reached the peak of the 4th level primordial soul realm and was not far from the 5th level. He had also cultivated many secret techniques, and his combat strength had reached an immeasurable level. It was no exaggeration to say that his strength now stood at the pinnacle of the continent. He could even be ranked in the top 3 and look down on all the heroes in the world. When he ended his seclusion, he exuded a domineering aura that looked down on the world. Every move he made triggered the power of heaven and earth. This feeling of being close to a god made him feel as if the world was in his grasp and he was invincible in the world. So, this is what it feels like to be in Primordial Soul Supreme and the peak of martial arts. If the Palace Master, Emperor Yi, and the other 3 hadn't imparted their lifetime's worth of skills to me, how long would I have to cultivate to reach such a level? I hope they can recuperate well in the Imperial Palace and return to their peak in 100 years. During this period, leave the chaos of the demon race to me. I will definitely kill the ancient demon emperor and wipe out all the demon race. Ji Tianqing murmured in his heart. He was grateful to the Palace Master, Emperor Yi, and the others from the bottom of his heart. He slowly opened his eyes. His gaze was as sharp as thunder and lightning, cutting through the darkness of the secret chamber. At that moment, the domineering aura that he exuded all retracted back into his body like the tide. His aura was extremely restrained, and he became like a mortal, unperturbed. Apart from the powerful aura that came from the depths of his soul, ordinary people could not tell his strength at all. He looked around and saw that the secret room was empty. He was the only one there. He immediately frowned. Where are the Palace Master, Emperor Yi, and the others? Could it be that they have exhausted their magic power and went into seclusion to recuperate? With that thought, he released a powerful divine sense that spread out in all directions and enveloped the entire imperial palace. After advancing to the primordial soul realm, his spirit evolved into a primordial soul. Naturally, the power of his spirit also became divine sense. It possessed even more powerful power and its effects were also more powerful. When he released his divine sense, the world within a radius of 500 miles was enveloped. Every blade of grass, every tree, every grain of sand, and every rock in this area could not escape his probing and perception. However, he searched the entire imperial palace and did not detect the aura of the Emperor Lord and the other 3. Strange, where did they go? Didn't the Palace Master say that they would recuperate in peace in the Imperial Palace after imparting their skills to me? Chapter 1437. Just as Ji Tianqing was filled with doubts and his expression was unreadable, a mysterious gem in the corner of the secret room lit up with a dense white light and condensed into a screen of light. A figure in a purple robe with snow-white hair appeared on the screen of light. It was Gu Daoxian, the Academy Master. The headmaster stared at him calmly. His eyes were kind and the corner of his lips curled into a comforting smile. Tianqing, by the time you see this, my 3 junior brothers and junior sisters will have already left this world, Tianqing said. The Academy Master's voice sounded. His tone was calm and serene, without a hint of sadness or regret. There seemed to be a hint of relief in his voice. Ji Tianqing was stunned. He stared at the screen of light and his face turned pale. What? You are all. The Academy Master's voice sounded again on the screen of light. No need to be sad or surprised. This is an outcome that was destined long ago. Please forgive me for deceiving you. We used the Great Enlightenment technique and passed on our lifetime's worth of skills to you. The price is, we will all vanish into thin air. However, we have no regrets. We have a clear conscience. I also believe that the current you is already standing proudly at the top of the continent. You are qualified to fight against the Demon Emperor and even kill him. That's all we can do to help you. Of course, this may not be called help. It may be repaying a debt of gratitude. In short, I leave the chaos of the demon race to you. The fate of the Tianxian continent is also up to you to decide. If fate wills it, we will meet again in the next life. When the time comes, I hope all the mysteries will be solved. As the Academy Master's voice slowly dissipated, the blazing white screen of light also gradually faded. The mysterious gem became ordinary and lost the effect of the image. During this process, Ji Tianqing could only look at the screen of light and listen to the Academy Master's last words. After all, that was only an image that the Academy Master had set up beforehand. He could only look at it but not talk to it. Ji Tianqing finally understood everything. However, his body froze on the spot. His heart was heavy and his face was ugly. He had hundreds of regrets and thousands of hatred in his heart, but he could only suppress them. He seemed to have lost his soul and revealed a bitter smile of self-mockery. He murmured in a sorrowful tone, "Ha ha ha. I should have thought of it. How could there be such a miraculous thing in the world? How is it possible for you to return to your peak after 100 years of recuperation? However, why are you doing this? Why are you sacrificing your lives to help me break through to the primordial spirit realm? What have I done to deserve such treatment from you?" He didn't blame the manor head and the other three for making the decision on their own, but his heart was filled with regret and guilt. The palace lord, Ren Huangyi, and the others had sacrificed their lives to help him. To him, this was an enormous pressure and responsibility. He silently swore that he would do everything in his power to kill the ancient fiend emperor and avenge the mansion master and the others. After a long time, he finally calmed down and muttered in a low voice. "I never expected that the parting would come so suddenly, and it was so sudden that I was unable to bid farewell to all of you. But, I will never let your sacrifice be in vain. Tens of billions of human beings will remember you forever." With that, he stood upright and looked towards the north with a burning gaze, his entire body bursting with killing intent. Of course, aside from these matters, he also had a regret in his heart. He had long wanted to ask the palace lord where he had settled Yunyao after bringing Yunyao to Shenwu continent. Unfortunately, he had only met the palace lord a few times before. Every time they met, it was a matter of life and death, and he had never had the chance to ask this question. Furthermore, the chaos of the demons had yet to be resolved, and whether or not he could survive was still unknown. His chances of going to Shenwu continent were even slimmer. Now that he had finally mastered the divine art, he had the chance and qualifications to ask this question. However, the palace lord had long since disappeared. Ji Tianqing could only suppress this regret in his heart and slowly resolve it in the future. His top priority now was to quickly understand the situation in Zhongzhou. North Gate of Zhongzhou City. Millions of human soldiers were doing their best to resist the demon army's attack. The battle was in full swing, and the defensive array shone with a dazzling brilliance. All sorts of earth-shattering noises could be heard. Batch after batch of heavily injured human soldiers were carried out of the array. Corpses after corpses of human soldiers were carried down the towering city walls and sent to the main camp in the city. The empty positions were quickly filled by batches of human soldiers. Outside the city walls, millions of skeletons were piled up into mountains as they madly charged towards the north gate and the tall city walls. More than 2 million demons spread out across the vast land, using their battle array to unleash powerful attacks. Magical beasts as large as mountains, specters, and evil souls were flying in the air above the battlefield. The battle had reached its most desperate moment. More than 800,000 human soldiers had died, while hundreds of thousands of demons had died. High in the sky, the emperor wielded the human emperor's sword and led several commanders to attack the demon emperor. The ancient demon emperor relied on the Taiyin soul-severing ruler's formidable power to face many powerhouses alone. He did not seem to be at a disadvantage, and instead, he had beaten everyone black and blue. Suddenly, a beam of spiritual light flew from the city gates and landed in the imperial tutor's hand. The imperial tutor caught the spiritual light and saw that it was a communication jade slip. He hurriedly used his divine soul to read the message in it. After reading it, his expression immediately changed. His blood-stained face revealed a look of deep surprise. "Emperor, Tianqing has come out of seclusion." The imperial tutor looked at the emperor with glowing eyes and transmitted the message. Perhaps because he was too excited, his voice was trembling. The emperor was fighting fiercely with the demon emperor. His golden robe and cape were torn, and he was covered in blood, but he did not care. When he suddenly heard this news, his cold and serious expression immediately relaxed. "We can still hold on for 2 more hours. Tell him to quickly reinforce the Water Tribe camp." The emperor made a prompt decision and gave the order to the imperial preceptor through telepathy. The imperial tutor hurriedly obeyed and sent the jade slip back. About 100 breaths later, he saw a dazzling golden light streaking across the sky above Zhongzhou City like a shooting star. That golden shooting star flew out of Zhongzhou City in the blink of an eye and headed toward the water tribe camp in the northeast direction. Seeing this, the emperor and the imperial tutor heaved a sigh of relief. They murmured to themselves, Tianxing, Tianxing, whether the water tribe camp can be saved and whether the situation can be reversed, it all depends on you. At the same time, the ancient demon emperor also sensed that something was wrong. He waved the Taiyin soul-severing ruler and unleashed a barrage of attacks, forcing the emperor and the commanders to retreat. Then, he turned around and was about to fly away. Of course, the emperor knew that the demon emperor wanted to rush to the water tribe camp to check on the situation. But how could he let the demon emperor do as he wished? He waved the emperor's sword and charged toward the demon emperor. He ordered in a deep voice, "Everyone, attack with all your might. We must stall the demon emperor no matter what." Chapter 1438. Ji Tianxing wanted to kill the ancient demonic emperor immediately. However, he knew that the ancient demonic emperor had the Taiyin soul-severing ruler and could not be defeated easily. Now that the demonic army had split into 3 groups and attacked the camps of the 3 races, the situation was very dangerous. At this critical moment, he could only suppress his anger and killing intent and focus on the big picture. He had to save the Sea Tribe camp first. He used his fastest speed and shot across the sky like a shooting star. In just a few seconds, he arrived above the mountains thousands of miles away. He was still 150 miles away, but he could already see the situation clearly. The Sea Tribe camp occupied an area of 400 miles and was surrounded by 5 mountains with a vast valley in the middle. The 5 mountains were covered by a defensive array, and the entire Sea Tribe camp was covered by several 7-colored light barriers. More than 1 million Sea Tribe soldiers lined up outside the camp and relied on the defensive array to resist the attacks of the demonic army. However, the Sea Tribe camp was in a perilous situation. The few defensive formations were broken and torn apart over and over again. Countless warriors were killed every single moment. Especially the mountain in the southwest. The defensive array was full of cracks and was in imminent danger. Half of the mountain had been turned into ruins. In a short while, that array would completely collapse and become a huge gap. In the mountains surrounding the campsite, the entire area within a radius of a few hundred miles was covered in darkness. It was an army of more than 2 million demons. When they gathered together, it was like a black sea. The 2 sides were fighting fiercely, and the scene was bloody and tragic. The mountains and the ground were dyed red with blood. The blood of the soldiers on both sides gathered in the valley to form rivers and blood lakes. The sky was filled with black clouds, and demonic chi filled the sky. The blood chi and souls of the millions of corpses condensed into a bloody mist that flowed slowly in the sky. Ji Tianxing could even see a few blood gods clones that had just reached the soul-tempering stage not long ago greedily devouring the blood chi and souls. He raised his head to look at the sky and saw the figures of a few powerhouses fighting endlessly. The Golden Dragon Emperor, dressed in a golden robe and covered in golden scales, was fighting 6 powerful demonic army soldiers alone. Among them was demonic commander Dark Knight, who was covered in 9 underworld armor, King of Nightmares, who was attached to the demonic god scepter, and 4 soul-tempering stage demonic army soldiers. No matter how strong the Golden Dragon Emperor was, he could easily injure any one of them. However, the 6 powerhouses didn't want to kill the Golden Dragon Emperor. They only wanted to keep him entangled, not giving him a chance to escape. The Golden Dragon Emperor couldn't help but roar with fury as he looked on helplessly as countless Water Tribe soldiers were slaughtered by the devilish army. At this time, Ji Tianxing finally arrived at the battlefield. After seeing the situation clearly, he flew to the southwest of the camp without hesitation and used a secret technique to attack the demon army below. Meteor shower. He stepped high into the sky, and his clothes fluttered about. Flames that overflowed into the heavens lit up, and an aura that could destroy the world erupted. Dense flames appeared in the distant sky, falling down like meteors. In the blink of an eye, tens of thousands of fiery lights pierced through the demonic clouds that covered the sky and poured onto the ground like a torrential downpour. Those were more than 30,000 huge fireballs. They were formed by the violent heavenly flames and possessed the terrifying power to incinerate everything. Suddenly, the area within a radius of a few hundred kilometers was illuminated by the fiery lights. Terrifying heat and air waves dispersed the blood mist and black clouds that filled the sky. Over 1 million warriors of the Demon Clan and the Water Clan all sensed the apocalyptic aura. They all raised their heads to look at the sky, showing an incomparably frightened face. Boom, 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 boom. Before the demon soldiers could react, the meteor shower that blotted out the sky and covered the earth drowned the area within a radius of 100 kilometers. A deafening sound burst out, reverberating endlessly in the sky. The mountains and earth within a radius of a few hundred kilometers shook violently and huge cracks appeared. The 500,000 demon soldiers that were attacking the defensive formation were swallowed by the boundless sea of flames. They struggled in the sea of flames, roaring and letting out heart-wrenching screams. However, all of this came to an abrupt end and gradually dissipated. After 10 breaths, the 500,000 demon soldiers were burned to ashes. They were all dead. The mountains and earth within a radius of 100 kilometers were also burned into a lake of magma, surging with scarlet flames. Ji Tianqing used a secret technique to cleanly and neatly kill the 500,000 demon soldiers, which immediately stunned everyone. Whether it was the demon soldiers or the water tribe soldiers, all of them were dumbstruck as they looked at the sky and let out frightened and shocked cries. The Golden Dragon Emperor, Demon Commander Dark Knight, and the others who were fighting were also shocked by this earth-shattering movement. Everyone stopped fighting and looked at Ji Tianqing in shock. They all had different expressions on their faces. The Golden Dragon Emperor was full of excitement and laughed heartily. Demon Commander Dark Knight and the other demon experts were as if their parents had died, and their bodies were cold. Ji Tianqing stood proudly in the sky, looking down at the sea of fire. He murmured to himself with an expressionless face, "The blood feud of the past, the grudges of the past, it's time to end it. The road of revenge has just begun. Only by slaughtering all the demons in the world can I be worthy of those who died." After saying that, he opened the world in the sword and called out the little black dragon, Qianyu, Ancestor Sanju, the Golden Mountain King, and the others. He pointed at the battlefield below and ordered expressionlessly, "Kill. Kill all of the demons." Ancestor Sanju, the Golden Mountain King, and the others immediately obeyed and used earth-shattering techniques to kill the demon army. Ji Tianqing did not waste any time and rushed to the demon army not far away, using his secret technique to start the massacre. Great Tao Imperfection, Pure Heart, 3 Pure Qi, Mysterious Heaven Demon Suppression. He formed a seal with both hands, forming a mysterious hand seal. His whole body bloomed with dazzling golden light, turning him into a golden light giant that was 30 meters tall, as sacred and dignified as a god. When he chanted the incantation and used the Pure Heart Demon Suppression art, his whole body erupted with a divine golden light that covered the sky and swept in all directions. Boom! The dazzling divine golden light exploded like a mushroom cloud, enveloping an area of 50 kilometers. At least 300,000 demon soldiers were drowned in the divine golden light. In that moment, he seemed to have become the golden sun in the sky, illuminating the world. The area of 50 kilometers was filled with demon soldiers, blood energy, and demonic clouds. It was truly a land of evil and filth. However, under the illumination of his divine sun, all evil was dispelled. The bodies of the 300,000 demon soldiers quickly eroded, shattering into thousands of pieces that scattered like sand. High in the sky, thousands of golden lotuses bloomed and fell like a downpour. On the ground, green sprouts sprouted from the dark brown desolate mountain range, showing signs of vitality. Such a miraculous scene was like a miracle. Chapter 1439. After Ji Tianqing appeared, he only used 2 secret techniques to kill more than 800,000 demon soldiers. The number of the demon army was reduced by 1/3. The morale of the demon army was hit hard. Many of the soldiers were terrified. They stopped moving forward and did not dare to attack again. There were also many demon soldiers who stopped attacking the Water Tribe camp. Instead, they joined forces to attack him. Near the southeast mountain, almost 400,000 demon soldiers formed a battle formation. They released hundreds of light pillars that shot towards him like a rain of arrows. The hundreds of dark red light beams were very powerful. They were comparable to the attack of an immortal soul stage elder. However, Ji Tianqing did not care. He did not use his golden wings. He only used his mana shield to protect himself. Bam bam bam. The hundreds of light beams hit him. There was a series of dull sounds that reverberated in the sky. Ji Tianqing was covered by the light beams. However, he was unharmed. In the blink of an eye, he rushed out of the light beams. Star-shattering fist. With a cold expression, he roared and punched at the 400,000 devilish soldiers. Boom boom. 2 fist shadows that were as huge as mountains fell from the sky with destructive power. They hit the demon battle formation and there were 2 earth-shattering sounds. Instantly, the mountains and the ground within 100 miles were smashed into ruins by the star-shattering fist. A huge crater appeared. Dense cracks extended all around the huge pit, and a torrential cloud of dust burst out. The mountains and the ground within a few hundred miles were shaken by the violent impact. The fate of the 400,000 demon soldiers was self-evident. They could not resist at all. They were smashed into pieces by the star-shattering fist. Blood splattered everywhere and scattered in the huge crater. After a dozen breaths, the earth-shattering sound gradually disappeared. Another 400,000 demon soldiers were killed. There were only about 1,600,000 left. The situation was reversed. The scales of victory were tilted towards the Water Tribe. The 1 million demon soldiers that survived were scared out of their wits by Ji Tianqing. Their expressions and eyes were filled with fear and shock. None of them dared to attack the Waterkind camp again. They all stepped back in fear, wanting to stay away from Ji Tianqing. In the Waterkind camp, over 2 million Waterkind warriors cheered out in high spirits. Not long ago, they were besieged by the demon race's army, and the situation was precarious. Their hearts were heavy and filled with despair. However, after Ji Tianqing arrived, he only used 3 secret techniques to unleash a destructive power that could destroy the heavens and earth, slaughtering 1,200,000 devils. This was simply an unbelievable miracle. He was the peerless god of slaughter. All the Waterkind warriors saw the hope of victory. How could they not be excited? High up in the sky, Demon Commander Dark Knight, Nightmare, and several other demon race powerhouses were still attacking the Golden Dragon Emperor with all their might. Seeing the situation of the battlefield below, Demon Marshal Dark Knight and Nightmare both turned pale with fright. Stormy waves rose in their hearts. They had all fought Ji Tianqing before, so they understood Ji Tianqing's strength. It was precisely because of this that they felt the most shock and disbelief. Damn it! 2 months ago, that little bastard was still in the soul-refining realm. How did he become so powerful now? This is impossible. How did his strength increase so much in just 2 months? No! We must stop him. We must not let him slaughter our army again. Demon Marshal Dark Knight and Nightmare exchanged a few words before giving up on attacking the Golden Dragon Emperor. They went all out to attack Ji Tianqing. Whoosh! With a flash of black light, the 2 of them attacked Ji Tianqing from the sky, launching a pincer attack from the left and right. Nether assault. Demon Marshal Dark Knight's whole body emitted a cold black light. He brandished his black broadsword and stabbed out a pitch-black sword light at Ji Tianqing with all his strength. That pitch-black sword light was condensed from the incomparably pure netherworld chi. It contained a powerful death energy that specialized in restraining the spirit. Nightmare also controlled the demon god scepter and released the power of the demon god scepter. It condensed 3 10-meter-long blood-colored sword lights and fiercely slashed at Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing, who was casting spells to slaughter the demon army below, seemed to be unprepared for the attack of demon martial Dark Knight and Nightmare. Seeing this scene, the Golden Dragon Emperor and countless soldiers of the Water Tribe all showed worried looks and shouted one after another, reminding Ji Tianqing to be careful. However, just as the Nether Sword Light and the blood-colored Sword Light were about to hit Ji Tianqing, he suddenly turned around and looked at Demon Marshal Dark Knight and Nightmare with a sneer on his face. He. I've been waiting for you for a long time. There was no doubt that after slaughtering more than 1.2 million demon army, he expected that Demon Marshal Dark Knight and Nightmare would not be able to hold back and launch a sneak attack. Therefore, he had long been prepared. Draw your sword. With a cold shout, Ji Tianqing instantly pulled out the Sword of Burial of Heaven and brandished a 100-meter-long golden sword light to meet the Nether Sword Light and the blood-colored sword light head-on. Boom! Amidst the deafening collision, the pitch-black Nether Sword Light and the dark red blood-colored sword light were cut into pieces on the spot and splashed in the sky. The power of the golden sword light was not reduced in the slightest as it instantly cut through the sky and hit Demon Marshal Dark Knight. Crack! With a crisp sound, a huge gap was cut open on the black armor worn by Demon Marshal Dark Knight, and dense cracks appeared on it. The violent and unparalleled force of impact sent it flying back, and it fell 10 miles away. Dark purple demon blood spurted out from the cracks in the armor and sprinkled in the sky. Nightmare was dumbfounded on the spot and exclaimed in shock, "How is this possible? You actually destroyed the 9 underworld armor?" Others might not know, but it was very clear that the 9 underworld armor worn by Demon Marshal Dark Knight was a primordial spirit armor refined over 1,000 years by gathering the 9 underworld's chi and cold iron. It was with this 9 underworld armor that Demon Marshal Dark Knight had dominated the continent for 1,000 years and had almost never been defeated. But now, Ji Tianqing had destroyed the 9 underworld armor with just one slash. What kind of terrifying strength was this? After Ji Tianqing sent Demon Marshal Dark Knight flying with one slash, he charged towards Nightmare without hesitation and sneered with a sinister face, "What's the big deal about destroying the 9 underworld armor? I also want to destroy the Demon God Scepter." Stab! With a furious roar, he thrust his sword with all his might. A cold light bloomed and crossed 10 miles in the sky in an instant, hitting the Demon God Scepter hard. Bang! Nightmare could not dodge in time and was stabbed by the cold light on the spot, producing a dull and loud sound. A dazzling cold light exploded in the sky like a huge mushroom cloud rising into the sky. The Demon God Scepter was blown away on the spot, and a few cracks appeared on the pitch-black scepter. Nightmare's consciousness was also blurred by the impact and he could only be blown away with the Demon God Scepter, smashing into the sky 10 miles away. Ji Tianqing took the opportunity to chase after him. He used the divine concealment step to cross the sky and caught up with Nightmare with a whoosh. Chapter 1440. Ji Tianqing's sword was simple and unadorned, but it contained the concept of returning to one's natural state. He did not slash out sword light, but used the Sword of Burial of Heaven to directly slash at the Demon God Scepter. The Demon God Scepter was, after all, a primordial soul-level magic treasure that had been passed down for 10,000 years. Its power and defense were very strong. Only when the Sword of Burial of Heaven collided with the Demon God Scepter could the scepter be completely broken and destroyed. In the next moment, the pitch-black and cold Sword of Burial of Heaven fiercely slashed at the Demon God Scepter. With a crisp crack, the mysterious and ancient Demon God Scepter was cut in half at the waist. The scepter was broken into 2 pieces, and its surface was covered with dense cracks as it flew out. The sacred item of the demon race, the Demon God Scepter that represented the authority of the Demon Emperor, was destroyed just like that. The 2 pieces of the scepter fell from the sky, and soon completely collapsed, turning into fragments that filled the sky. A shadowy and illusory mass of black gas flew out from the countless fragments, and fled towards the north in panic. That was the nightmare. It was not a physical object, and did not have a body of flesh and blood. It could only attach itself to the demon god's scepter, or parasitize the dreams of others. Now that the demon god's scepter was destroyed, its strength was greatly reduced, and it also lost its powerful protection. In its panic, it subconsciously turned around and fled, only wanting to immediately escape back to the demon race's camp. But Ji Tianqing came to aid the water race's camp not only to kill the demon race's army, but also to kill it and demon commander Dark Knight. How could he let it escape? Whoosh! With a flash of golden light, Ji Tianqing directly teleported 15 kilometers, blocking the nightmare's path. He waved the sword of burial of heaven in his hand, and ruthlessly slashed at the nightmare. Bam! The nightmare was slashed by the sword of burial of heaven on the spot, and exploded into thousands of wisps of black gas, scattering in all directions. However, those thousands of wisps of black gas quickly gathered again, condensing into a mass of black fog. Kakik. Ji Tianqing, you want to kill me? Stop dreaming. I am immortal and indestructible. Nightmares were special demonic creatures. They were not made of flesh and blood, nor were they made of spiritual energy. They could only be killed by special means. To ordinary powerhouses, it was practically indestructible. Unfortunately, it encountered Ji Tianqing and was destined to meet a tragic end. Indestructible? Are you worthy? Ji Tianqing snorted contemptuously. He suddenly raised his left arm and shot out a huge golden palm that blotted out the sky. Heaven-seizing palm. In the blink of an eye, the golden palm wrapped around the incubus and dragged it back to Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing activated the power of the heaven-mending orb and released a sacred white light that enveloped the nightmare. Shwa! Under the purification of the holy white light, the nightmare was like snow under the scorching sun, melting in the blink of an eye. Ordinary experts could not kill it, but Ji Tianqing could use the heaven-mending orb to completely destroy it. After dealing with the nightmare, Ji Tianqing raised his head and looked at the sky in front of him, looking for the figure of Demon General Dark Knight. Demon General Dark Knight had already treated his injuries and was about to rescue the incubus. Seeing that the situation was not good, he turned into a black stream of light and turned to fly toward the north. Before escaping, he did not forget to give a cold shout and order to the demon army, retreat, quickly return to the camp. You're about to die, and you still want to escape. Ji Tianqing snorted coldly, and his figure flashed and teleported dozens of miles away. He appeared in front of Demon General Dark Knight out of thin air, holding the sword of burial of heaven in his hand, and stopped Demon General Dark Knight. Demon General Dark Knight, do you still remember when I escaped from the northern desert and you chased me to the Mangu mountain range? He looked at Demon General Dark Knight with a cold expression, and his eyes were surging with an icy cold light. Demon General Dark Knight gripped the black broadsword tightly and stared at him with a gloomy gaze, silent and not saying a word. Ji Tianqing snorted coldly. Back then, if I wasn't lucky enough and Emperor Yi repelled you in time, I'm afraid I would have been killed by you long ago. From that day on, I made up my mind to kill you with my own hands and take revenge. And today is the day of your death. 2 years of enduring humiliation and painstaking cultivation were all for this day, to wash away the humiliation and hatred from back then. Ji Tianqing's entire body erupted with soaring killing intent, and his eyes were extremely cold. As his voice fell, he waved the sword of burial of heaven in his hand, and a crescent sword light that was thousands of feet long swept out. Demon General Dark Knight, die. As his angry shout sounded, the crescent sword light that was thousands of feet long instantly drowned Demon General Dark Knight's figure. Demon General Dark Knight revealed a look of horror and despair, and hurriedly unleashed all of his power to condense a magical power shield. Moreover, he desperately waved the black sword, slashing out sword light that filled the sky to block Ji Tianqing's attack. But it was all in vain. Kaboom! With a thunderous sound, the sword light and the black light shield that filled the sky were cut into countless pieces. Without the protection of the 9 underworld armor, Demon General Dark Knight was also cut in half by the crescent sword light, and his body was split into 2. Swoosh! A dark purple soul flew out of the corpse. It actually did not turn around to escape. Instead, it swelled violently, brewing an incomparably terrifying aura. Seeing this scene, Ji Tianqing immediately frowned and revealed a look of surprise. You actually want to self-destruct? You want to die with me? Demon General Dark Knight, you're too naive. Obviously, Demon General Dark Knight knew that it would be difficult to escape and that he would die without a doubt, so he decisively self-destructed. He wanted to die with Ji Tianqing, and kill countless Water Clan soldiers along the way. Only in this way would his sacrifice be worth it. However, he underestimated Ji Tianqing's strength. Even more so, it could not imagine how powerful Ji Tianqing's divine abilities were. Great Freedom Soul Destruction / Ji Tianqing shouted coldly with an expressionless face. He waved the Burial of Heaven and slashed out a hidden and invisible sword light, attacking Demon General Dark Knight's soul. The invisible and huge sword light contained a very terrifying power that specialized in destroying soul power. Before Demon General Dark Knight's soul could self-destruct, it was hit by the soul destruction / Boom! With a dull bang, Demon General Dark Knight's soul collapsed on the spot. It was blasted into pieces by the soul destruction / and scattered in the sky. Demon General Dark Knight fell and was completely obliterated. Ji Tianqing activated the power of the heaven-mending orb again and waved his hand to release a sacred white light that enveloped the fragments in the sky. The fragments of Demon General Dark Knight's soul were quickly devoured by the heaven-mending orb. On the battlefield below, countless soldiers of the Demon Clan and the Water Clan witnessed Ji Tianqing kill Nightmare and Demon General Dark Knight with their own eyes. Everyone revealed an incredulous expression and was filled with shock. No one could imagine that the incomparably powerful Demon General Dark Knight and Nightmare would be so weak in front of Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing only used a few moves and killed two powerhouses in a short 20 breaths of time. What kind of terrifying strength was this? The Water Clan soldiers became more and more spirited, their morale soaring as they let out earth-shattering cheers. More than 1 million Demon Clan soldiers were frightened to the extreme. They retreated in a sorry state like a black tide, quickly retreating to the north. Chapter 1441. The crisis in the Water Tribe camp was resolved. More than 1 million Devil Race soldiers retreated back to the Devil Race's main camp in a panic. The Water Race soldiers took advantage of the situation to pursue and killing batch after batch of the Devil Race army. The little black dragon, Qianyu, the Golden Mountain King, and Forefather Trial charged at the forefront and massacred the demons. Of course, Ji Tianqing wouldn't let the Devil Race's army escape back to the Devil Race's camp. He also began his pursuit, unleashing devastating attacks to vent his fury on the demon army. Meteor shower. Star-shattering fist. In a short span of 100 breaths, he had killed hundreds of thousands of demons. The remaining hundreds of thousands of demons had already been utterly defeated. They were scattered into dozens of groups and desperately fleeing through the mountains and rivers. Ji Tianqing couldn't be bothered with these remnants of the demons. He left them to the Water Tribe soldiers to deal with. He flew back to the Water Tribe camp and looked at the Golden Dragon Emperor. The Golden Dragon Emperor had already stopped fighting and was directing the Water Tribe soldiers to repair the camp. Previously, he was besieged by Nightmare, Demon Commander Dark Knight, and several other demons. Even though he was at the Essence Spirit Realm, he couldn't escape. After all, Demon Commander Dark Knight and Nightmare both had Essence Spirit Realm magic treasures. Their fighting strength was comparable to Essence Spirit Realm experts. After Ji Tianqing killed Nightmare and Demon Commander Dark Knight, the remaining few Soul Refinement Realm demons were quickly killed by the Golden Dragon Emperor. Swoosh! The Golden Dragon Emperor flew across the sky and stopped in front of Ji Tianqing. A gratified smile appeared on his face as he studied Ji Tianqing with shining eyes. He said somewhat emotionally, "Tianqing, I trust you've been well since we last met." Ji Tianqing nodded and smiled. "Greetings, Your Majesty Golden Dragon Emperor." The Golden Dragon Emperor stared at him and said with emotion, I didn't expect you to grow to this extent in just a short year. Your strength has surpassed mine. It's incredible. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I wouldn't have believed it. It was true that the Golden Dragon Emperor was only at the 3rd level of the Essence Spirit Realm, but Ji Tianqing was already at the peak of the 4th level. Furthermore, his true battle power was not as simple as a 4th level Primordial Soul Stage cultivator. The Golden Dragon Emperor's words were definitely from the bottom of his heart, and they were filled with shock and admiration. Ji Tianqing didn't say anything. He just smiled and cupped his hands. Your Majesty Dragon Emperor, I'll leave this place to you. The Devil Emperor is attacking Central Continent City. I have to go back and help the Emperor immediately. Golden Dragon Emperor's smile faded as a serious expression appeared on his face. It's said that the Devilish Emperor possesses a divine tool that defies the heavens, so you have to be careful. You go and assist the Emperor Lord first. After this Emperor has settled down my clan's soldiers, I will head to Central Continent City to assist. Ji Tianqing nodded, said goodbye to him, and turned to leave. Right now, in Central Continent City, the battle situation was intense to the extreme. The Demon Emperor personally led an army of over 1 million demons to attack the Northern Gate. The other 1 million Devil Race soldiers went all out to attack the East Gate. It was obvious that the Demon Emperor had sent half of his forces to attack the East Gate, hoping to enter the Central Prefecture through the East Gate. Below the Northern Gate, everything within 50 kilometers had been reduced to rubble. The ground was filled with huge ravines and deep pits. The moat had long been destroyed. Countless deep pits were filled with dark red blood and piles of corpses. The Devil Race army was still charging bravely, their battle cries shaking the heavens. Inside the city walls, the 1 million human soldiers were still bitterly holding on. Every moment, tens of thousands of human and demon soldiers were sacrificed. The sky above Central Continent City was completely shrouded in black clouds and a bloody mist. 10,000 meters above the ground, the Emperor Lord, the Imperial Tutor, and several human commanders were fighting the Devil Emperor. Even though the Emperor Lord and the others had the advantage in numbers and were attacking the Devil Emperor from all sides, they were no match for the Devil Emperor. However, none of them were a match for the Devil Emperor, and none of them were able to injure him. On the contrary, the Emperor's preceptor and the few human commanders were covered in wounds and blood by the Devil Emperor. There were also 2 commanders who had been sacrificed in the previous battle. These 2 commanders had been recruited by the Imperial Court. They were hermit experts who lived in seclusion from the world. Their deaths were extremely miserable. The Devil Emperor had reduced their physical bodies to dregs and even their souls to pieces. The Emperor Lord's injuries were slightly lighter and not life-threatening. The Imperial Tutor, Yun Zhongqi, Divine Dr. Bailey, and the others were all heavily injured and on the verge of death. They grew weaker and weaker, their speed slower and slower, and their injuries worsened. If not for the Emperor Lord using all his strength to block the Devil Emperor's attacks and shoulder 80% of the pressure, they would have been killed long ago. Even so, the situation was worsening. In at most 100 breaths of time, the Imperial Tutor and the commanders would be completely exhausted. At that time, they would find it very difficult to retreat to Central Continent City and would definitely be killed by the Devil Emperor. Just at this moment of life and death, a hidden and formless figure sped over from the distant sky. It was Ji Tianqing. He flickered 3 times in the sky and teleported 100 miles away, appearing not far behind the Devil Emperor. He hurriedly unleashed a mystic technique to attack the Demon Emperor upon seeing that the Devil Emperor was wielding an ice-cold, pitch-black ruler. Big Dipper sword. He let loose a low roar as he wielded the Sword of Burial of Heaven, unleashing 7 streaks of golden light that enshrouded the Devil Emperor's body. In that instant, dazzling golden light erupted and illuminated the sky within a radius of 200 kilometers. This area was transformed into a holy world of golden light. The peerlessly terrifying sword intent seemed to be tearing a series of rifts in the sky. No matter how powerful the Devil Emperor was, he didn't expect Ji Tianqing to appear at this time. Furthermore, he didn't expect Ji Tianqing to grow to such a level. By the time he sensed that something was amiss, it was already too late. Bam 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 bam, 7 consecutive muffled booms erupted high in the sky, as if 7 bolts of divine lightning had struck. The terrifyingly powerful golden sword projection instantly shattered the Demon King's magic power shield before stabbing into his body viciously. His entire body was covered in ice-cold, pitch-black scales and possessed an extremely powerful defense. However, 7 bloody holes immediately appeared on his broad back and waist, from which dark purple demonic blood spurted out. Each of the bloody holes was the size of a bowl, and they were so deep that his bones could be seen. Roar! The sudden extreme pain caused his body to tremble violently, and he let loose a pained roar as his body convulsed. He immediately circulated his energy to shatter the 7 streaks of golden light before abruptly turning around. His 4 eyes were as red as blood as he glared hatefully at Ji Tianqing. When he saw that his assailant was Ji Tianqing, his expression changed drastically, and a look of intense shock appeared on his face. Ji Tianqing. It's actually you, you bastard. You actually injured me. How is this possible? At that moment, his heart was extremely shaken, and a storm was set off within him. Ji Tianqing stared at him coldly as a cold smile appeared on his face. Ha, ha, ha. Nothing is impossible. 3 years ago, when you broke the seal of the Sky Pillar sect, I silently swore that one day, I would personally kill you and avenge the deaths of my fellow sect members. Chapter 1442. Originally, Ji Tianqing could cultivate peacefully in the Sky Pillar sect and live a peaceful life. With his talent, he could have inherited the position of sect master in a few years. He and Yunyao could also see each other every day and love each other. But all of this was ruined by the Demon King. After the Demon King broke the seal, not only did he destroy the Sky Pillar sect and kill countless people, but he also almost lost his life. From then on, he hated the Devil Emperor to the bone and swore to kill the Devil Emperor to avenge himself. It was also from then on that his fate changed. In the past few years, he had suffered countless dangers and tribulations, and he almost lost his life countless times. The main culprit behind all of this was the ancient Demon King. In this world, the person that Ji Tianqing hated the most and wanted to kill the most was the Demon King. The ancient Demon King calmed down and stared at him with venomous eyes. He said in a low and cold voice, Ji Tianqing. You are indeed the successor of the Kenshin bloodline. You are so monstrous. I have never seen someone as monstrous as you in tens of thousands of years. In just 2 months, you have broken through the Essence Soul Realm and even reached the 4th level of the Essence Soul Realm. This is definitely a miracle. The Kenshin bloodline is so powerful. The ancient Demon King did not know the real reason for Ji Tianqing's sudden increase in strength. He only thought that it was the heaven-defying effect of the Kenshin bloodline. He even suspected that Ji Tianqing had undergone some kind of bloodline awakening to become so powerful. At that thought, he coveted the Kenshin bloodline even more. His heart was filled with jealousy, so much so that his eyes turned red. He wanted nothing more than to kill Ji Tianqing immediately and take the Kenshin bloodline for himself. Ji Tianqing did not reply. He looked calmly at the imperial tutor, Yun Zhongqi, and the rest. He said, everyone, leave this to us. Go back and recuperate. The imperial tutor, Yun Zhongqi, and the others all hesitated for a moment and cast inquiring gazes at the emperor. The emperor took a deep look at Ji Tianqing. After seeing his strength, he nodded to everyone. Listen to Tianqing. Only then did the imperial tutor, Yun Zhongqi, and the others retreat into the distance and give him a few words of advice. Emperor, Tianqing, you must be careful. No matter what, you must return safely. After saying this, the imperial tutor, Yun Zhongqi, and the others flew back to Central Continent City, their bodies covered in wounds and blood. Only Ji Tianqing, the celestial emperor, and the demon emperor were left above the clouds. The 3 of them stood in the sea of clouds with cold expressions, their bodies surging with killing intent. Ji Tianqing and the emperor stood on the left and right of the demon emperor, facing each other from 10 miles away. Both of them had their left hands behind their backs and their right hands wielding divine swords as they stared coldly at the demon emperor. Ji Tianqing's gaze was fixed on the Taiyin soul-severing ruler in the demon emperor's hand. It was a dark purple ruler that was as wide as a palm and about 5 feet long. Its design was exquisite and beautiful. The ruler was straight and narrow. Its surface was engraved with ancient runes and symbols that flickered with purple light. The ruler's surface was covered in a layer of purple mist. It was mysterious and cold and had the effect of suppressing the soul and primordial spirit. Ji Tianqing frowned slightly as he thought to himself, the demon emperor's strength has only recovered to about the 5th level of the primordial spirit realm. He is not much of a threat to me. However, the Taiyin soul-severing ruler in his hand is a true divine artifact. It has the power to destroy the world. Back then, he used this ruler to severely injure the Manor Lord and dig out his deity heart. I wonder where the Devil Emperor obtained this divine ruler from. He had always had this question in his heart, but he could not find an answer. At this moment, the Empyrean Emperor looked down at the north gate of Central State City. He frowned and pondered for a moment before sending a voice transmission to Ji Tianqing. Tianqing, we have to lure the demon emperor further away. This place is too close to Central State City. If we fight with all our strength, the shockwaves from the battle will definitely endanger Central State City. If the defensive array is destroyed, Central State City will be breached. The consequences will be unimaginable. Ji Tianqing nodded to express his understanding. He pointed the burial of heaven at the demon emperor and said in a contemptuous tone, Demon Emperor, everyone knows that I am your nemesis and nemesis. Today, we will fight to the death and settle this once and for all. Not only will I kill you, I will also wipe out your army of 10 million and slaughter the entire northern desert. If you have the guts, come with me. With that, he held the burial of heaven and flew into the distance. The demon emperor also had the same intention. He did not want the shockwaves from the battle to harm the demon army attacking Central State City. He held the extreme Yin soul-severing ruler and sneered with a sinister expression. Then, he chased after Ji Tianqing into the distance. Little bastard, so what if you have reached the primordial spirit realm? This emperor has cultivated for several thousand years. How can you imagine the remarkable abilities and methods I possess? You think you are worthy of being this emperor's nemesis? This emperor will tear you to pieces and take your Kenshin bloodline. After about 30 breaths of time, Ji Tianqing stopped in the air above a majestic mountain range. This place was over 1,000 li away from Central State City. The shockwaves from the battle between the three of them at full strength would not destroy the defenses of Central State City. He stood in the sky above the mountains, towering above the clouds. The demon emperor followed closely behind. He waved his dark purple ruler and slashed out giant purple blades of light that blotted out the sky. Soul-severing slash. Following his furious roar, 9 gigantic blades of purple light that were thousands of meters long slashed towards Ji Tianqing as if they could split the heavens and earth. The strange thing was that the 9 purple blades of light were very illusory. They were clearly not real. This was the divine power of the extreme Yin soul-severing ruler, a strange power that specialized in destroying souls and primordial spirits. Although Ji Tianqing was confident, he was not arrogant. He looked warily at the demon emperor and used all his strength to block the 9 purple blades. Great freedom soul annihilation slash. He waved the sword of burial of heaven and slashed out 9 invisible sword flares that were over 1,000 feet long, slashing at the 9 purple blades. These 9 invisible sword flares were similar to the soul-severing slash. They were both powers that countered souls. In the next moment, the 18 sword flares clashed with a loud boom. Bang! 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 The 9 invisible sword flares immediately collapsed, turning into violent shockwaves that swept out in all directions. The shockwaves scattered the clouds in a radius of several dozen li, turning it into a blank area. However, the 9 purple soul-severing slashes did not dissipate. Instead, they slashed at Ji Tianqing. Bang! 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 Ji Tianxing was sent flying 10 miles away by the attack. Fortunately, he had cultivated the Dharma body of heaven and earth and the true self-Dharma form. They withstood the power of the 9 soul-severing slashes. His physical body and primordial spirit were unharmed. However, his primordial spirit was shaken, and his consciousness was a little blurry. The demon emperor took the opportunity to pursue. He sneered and waved his ruler again, slashing out a few more giant purple blades. At this moment, the emperor had arrived. He quickly waved the sword of the human sovereign to meet the demon emperor. Glaze Emperor Sword. He waved the sword of the human sovereign and slashed out golden sword flares that covered the sky. They formed a golden wall that looked like glaze, blocking the demon emperor's attack. Ji Tianxing was sent flying 10 li away. When his primordial spirit came to, he immediately teleported back and used his secret technique to attack the demon emperor. You're tuning in to the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.